Morning, everybody. It's 7 o'clock. Coming up on the programme for you this morning, 24 hours of chaos in South Korea. The president backs down after declaring martial law and now faces impeachment.
Plus, full steam ahead, Labour reveal plans to renationalise 3 rail operators next year. Well, we'll speak to the Transport Secretary in just a few minutes.
And we'll tell you about the heroism of a retired police dog just out for a walk after surgery.
It was his birthday as well. It's Wednesday, the 4th of December. South Korean MPs break down barriers and scale fences to stop martial law. They've now begun impeachment proceedings against the president. South Western Railway will be the first train operator nationalised under Labour. Riot police used tear gas and water cannon to clear protesters in Georgia.
The police are firing tear gas right now to try and drive the protesters away. They're also been using water cannon, but the protesters just keep firing back.
Also ahead, justice denied how the UK's Wild West court system is failing victims. The British band's sports team robbed at gunpoint on the first day of their US tour. They tell Sky News the show must go on. Morning, everyone. Protesters in South Korea have been celebrating after forcing their president to back down and lift martial law. Opposition MPs crawled through barricades and climbed fences to get into Parliament so that they could vote against the order and protect their country's democracy. They now say the president cannot stay in power and a second longer and have begun proceedings to impeach him. A warning, this report from our Asia correspondent Nicole Johnston contains flash photography.
South Korea has not had a night like this in decades. Political turmoil taken to a whole new level. The president is facing growing calls to resign or be impeached for putting the country's democracy in peril. He has now backed down and rescinded his declaration of martial law, but only after a severe crisis, protests and troops on the street.
I have accepted the decision made by the National Assembly to dissolve and lift the martial law.
The opposition says he must go and have started impeachment proceedings.
Yoon Suk-yeol is not in his right mind. His judgment and situational awareness are not normal. It has been confirmed that he is in such a seriously abnormal state that he should not be performing his duties as president, even for a single minute or second.
These were the scenes in the capital Seoul just hours before. Troops on the street. Helicopters above. Crisis and confusion. After weeks of political impasse and claims of corruption, this country, a beacon of democracy and stability, placed under martial law. The opposition, outraged, called on the public to rally. Even members of the president's own party said he had gone too far. Crowds gathered outside the parliament. Then lawmakers entered the building. The opposition leader live-streamed himself climbing over barriers to get inside. The parliament voted down the martial law and declared it illegal, ordering the troops to stand down.
To the soldiers of the Republic of Korea, from now on, the president's order following the illegal declaration of martial law is clearly illegal and unconstitutional.
President Yoon has been under pressure for months. He lost an election this year, was forced to form a minority government, and his popularity has plummeted.
His argument was that opposition party is in cahoots with North, is threatening the South Korean security, which is just ridiculous. I think very few South Koreans will agree with that.
The declaration has backfired on Yoon. South Korea's democracy appears challenged but intact. Yoon's political career may not survive it.
Nicole with us now. I think that's an understatement, isn't it? That they're looking to impeach him, starting those proceedings as we speak?
Exactly. 6 South Korean opposition parties have submitted that impeachment bill Tomorrow it will be discussed and then voted on Friday or Saturday. So, as you said, things are really starting to move very quickly in South Korea. The big question, though, is what is the president going to do? He has been asked to step down. All of this pressure now coming from impeachment. He may decide that stepping down is the best option. So far, no word. On the impeachment side of things, though, if that is what happens, it will drag out the process because that could take 4 or 5 months. In the meantime, the Prime Minister will step in as president, and it will be some time until the political dust settles in South Korea. For the time being, though, things are a little bit calmer on the street compared with those crazy scenes that we had deep into the night last night. A few hundred people have gathered, protesting, celebrating. There is a strike by the country's largest trade union, and we've just heard that civil society groups are calling on people to go to the streets tonight, and they're expecting that in Seoul, some 30,000 people will heed the call. So we'll be following the developments, but it could be, again, pretty striking scenes to see in South Korea, a country that we know for its stability and its democracy. It was almost derailed last night, but the people stood up along with the politicians, not only from the opposition, but also from the president's own party. And now, of course, people are wondering, what was he thinking? What was he doing? How did he think that he could get away with it? And there's still a great deal of anger and confusion among the South Korean public.
OK, for now, thank you. The government's announced that South Western Railway trains will be the first train operator to be renationalised next year. The government says the firm, which operates services between London Waterloo and destinations in the south and southwest of England, will be nationalised in the spring. C2C and Greater Anglia services will also be taken back into public ownership next year. And at 7:15, very shortly in fact, chatting to the Transport Secretary, new Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander. Sports team, British band, 2 previous top 10 albums, I believe. What happened to them last night?
Well, they were robbed at gunpoint, Kay, on the first day of their new US tour. That's right, they're a 6-piece band, an indie band formed in Cambridge, based in London, but we're over in the US, and they landed in San Francisco on Monday evening. Tuesday morning, they were getting coffee at a Starbucks, and someone ran into the coffee shop, you can see some of the videos there, and told them that their van was being robbed. The band ran out, as you would expect, and somebody pulled out a gun at them, getting away with quite a lot of their belongings. Now, Sky News actually was able to speak to the singer Alex Rice, and he told us really about how terrifying it was.
We were on the Starbucks ordering, essentially, and someone there said, OK, has anyone got a white Sprinter van outside? It's being robbed, basically. So everyone sprints out, natural reaction, right? You sprint towards it to try and stop it. And immediately the guy pulls a gun. He pulls a gun, sort of points it at our tour manager, Lauren. There's another guy as well loading stuff out, and a third guy in a getaway car. So we all kind of sprint back into the Starbucks, and they've taken kind of just a huge amount of personal stuff and some musical equipment from the middle of our van. So I haven't played a note yet. 1 minute in, we've kind of got this stuff taken.
But the show must go on.
The show must go on, absolutely. So they say the thieves were able to get things like their video equipment, laptops that they use on stage, their passports, their documents, even their clothes were taken in their suitcases. But the musical instruments were locked safely at the back of the van. So they say they were able to play. They went on to play last night, and they said the show would continue and they would continue the tour as normal. But they did say that they found it quite shocking, really, that, you know, particularly coming from the UK, something like a gunpoint robbery was really horrifying, quite harrowing for them. But they said everybody else just almost took it quite calmly. People in Starbucks went back serving their customers, and even when they rang the police, they say they didn't turn up. They just told them to fill out a form online. So pretty shocking for them. But as you say, the show must go on, and they're determined to continue playing to their fans as planned.
Good for them. Thanks very much indeed for now. Thank you, Rachel. Rest of today's top stories for now. Here's Gareth.
Yes, good morning. Let's turn our attention to Georgia. Thousands of people returned to the country's parliament last night to protest against the ruling party's decision to suspend talks on joining the European Union. Ivor Bennett has the latest from the capital, Tbilisi.
On the streets of Tbilisi right now is a battle for Georgia's future. On one side, protesters and pyrotechnics. On the other, the increasingly strong arm of the law.
The police are firing tear gas right now to try and drive the protesters away. They're also been using water cannon, but the protesters just keep firing back. They're sending firework after firework back to the police lines. They will not be deterred.
For 6 nights now, they've massed in their thousands, furious at the ruling party's decision to suspend plans to join the EU. Demonstrators believe Russia is behind it.
We don't need Russia, we need USA, we need new life and new rules, not Russia.
Current government, which has no legitimation, just trying to kill the voice of the people.
According to the Prime Minister, it's all a misunderstanding. He insists the EU is still the end goal.
Our main foreign policy priority is European integration, but we will pursue this goal with dignity, fairness and without blackmail.
But there's no misunderstanding footage like this. Injured protester Zviad Maisashvili gets kicked in the face by a police officer. Zviad doesn't remember the kick because it knocked him out. But through his bandages, he has watched the video.
Not true at all. I just couldn't believe the policeman who is doing it. I just couldn't believe that he's the human. I don't know how the humans can do such a thing.
But it's actions like that which have galvanised the demonstrators, and there's no sign of them backing down. Ivor Bennett, Sky News, Tbilisi.
Donald Trump's lawyers have asked a New York court to throw out his hush money conviction. The US president-elect was found guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records in May. He tried to cover up payments to a porn star before the 2016 presidential race. The French Prime Minister Michel Barnier is set to face a no-confidence vote today. He will be defeated if both the far left and the far right vote against him. The last French government to fall as a result of a no-confidence vote was back in 1962. King Charles will accompany the Emir of Qatar to Sandhurst on the second day of his state visit to the UK. The Qatari leader will also meet with Sir Keir Starmer at Downing Street and deliver a speech at Mansion House this evening. And artist Jaslyn Kaur has won the Turner Prize for work exploring her Scottish Sikh identity. Her winning exhibition includes a vintage Ford car draped in a crocheted doily. The 38-year-old was handed the £25,000 prize by actor James Norton at a ceremony at London's Tate Britain last night.
Barristers are warning that too many people are getting away with crimes because of court delays, and they say the justice system is broken. Tom Parmenter reports.
Any one of us could end up in court. You could be a victim or accused of a crime. You might just witness something happen. But the criminal court system is on its knees.
I don't like saying it's broken. It makes me sad. But it's broken because it's not effective. It's not functioning in the way it used to function.
We spent 2 days at Leicester Crown Court with leading barrister Mary Pryor.
There's this old saying, isn't there? Justice delayed is justice denied.
She explained that the police are charging more people, the courts are struggling to keep up. There's shortages of administrative staff, barristers and judges. The prison vans are often running late.
It's incredibly difficult to have to look people in the eye and say, I'm sorry, your trial's going to be adjourned until 2025, 26, 27, and now 2028.
Cameras aren't allowed inside, but we have spent time in the courtrooms, the corridors, the barrister's robing room to witness this problem unfolding. In one hearing, the judge told us directly of his frustration at the delays and the problems they cause. And a prosecutor told us that it means people are getting away with crimes.
We saw the grapple to plug the gaps. Junior barristers like Annabelle having to jump onto unexpected cases with no notice.
It's a lot of pressure. It's stressful. If we don't have a functioning criminal justice system, we are in a position where you have people roaming the streets who are committing serious offences and there's no retribution for that.
And it re-traumatises the victims of crime.
It's draining. Physically, you don't want to get out of bed. Victims I've spoke to feel, what's the point of going forward? And the more that you delay matters, you'll see a lot of victims withdrawing from the system because they just think, what's the point?
After just 2 days in Leicester, it's clear how unsustainable this is.
I really worry that we will end up in a situation where people take the law into their own hands. That's the risk.
The government said it is committed to bearing down on the backlog in England and Wales. But the evidence from court shows the damage it's doing to a justice system that was once the envy of the world. Tom Parmenter, Sky News.
Anjum's here with us. Good morning. First time on breakfast, certainly with me. You want to tell me about 300,000 kids who didn't go to school?
So the research that we've just been made aware of has shown that 300,000 children estimated have not been in the education system in the year 2023. And this is a 40% increase from 2017. So these are startling figures. And we're talking about children aged between 5 and 15. And 1/5 of those children who are not in the education sector are leaving in year 10. So when they're about to start their GCSE course, a really critical time in their education journey, there seems to be a fifth. So nearly 20% of children are exiting the education sector. And the worry is that we're not sure what's happening with those children, how they're falling through these cracks in the system.
It was COVID, wasn't it? And then they just haven't gone back to school.
There's an element of that, but there's also children who are now saying that, you know, they're struggling with school and the setting and their needs are not being met. We know that there's a SEND issue that we've been talking about. There's a backlog of children being diagnosed appropriately and their needs being met. But there's a really big number of children who are being homeschooled. So parents have made a very conscious decision to withdraw their children from formal education in the state sector and have decided to take that responsibility upon themselves to formally educate them. And that has doubled in numbers since 2017. So there's a real decision there that parents are making to opt out of what we would call formal education.
OK, for now. Thanks very much. Thank you. Still to come on The Breakfast Show for you here on Sky News, turmoil in South Korea as the president backs down after declaring martial law and now faces impeachment. We get reaction from Tobias Elwood.
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
You are not getting in this elevator, okay?
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Free, wherever you get your news. This is what they're up against. The wind is the really big problem. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? This is the exact spot in Nottingham where their 19-year-old son, Barnaby Webber, lost his life.
I just think it's so cruel and so harsh.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
Sky News gets the full story first. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. It's almost driverless, but not quite. Hans is a highly trained police dog. The force is incredible. It's really frightening, actually. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before?
Yes. Cheers. We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life?
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to The Breakfast Show here on Sky News. Thrilled to say that the new Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, is with us. It's great to see you.
Thanks, Kate.
How's the new job?
Yeah, good. Quite full on. I've been in the job for 5 days now, so a lot going on.
Why has privatisation not worked for our railways?
So I think there's huge fragmentation under the privatised system. You've got this dizzying array of private companies, which are the train operating companies, industry groups, some public sector bodies, parts of government, and there are a lot of tensions and conflicts of interest, and incentives, financial incentives are misaligned, and there's no overarching direction. And so I think as a result of that, no one's in control. That's what we're going to be changing when we set up Great British Railways. And what we're announcing today is a sort of first step on that journey.
So all 28 major UK train operators, that their services will come back into public ownership?
So there's currently 4 train operating companies that are already in public ownership, and there's a further 10 that will come in.
But what about the others?
So you've got some open access operators and things like Heathrow Express, for example, and that won't come into public ownership.
Why are the services that you're bringing, the 3 that are the latest that we've heard about, why are you bringing them back into public ownership?
So we've got South Western that is coming in next May, then we've got C2C in July, and then we've got Greater Anglia in the autumn. So the contract expires, it comes to an end for South Western and C2C. And then on Greater Anglia, that is one of the companies that has actually got to the point in its contract where there's sort of like a minimum term after which it is possible for the DfT to end their contract if we serve them with an expiry notice. And so it makes logical sense to do those 3, given that we don't have to pay any compensation to the train operating company if we proceed in this way.
OK. What are you going to do about Avanti West Coast?
Yeah, so that's a problem at the moment. It's one of the worst performing rail companies, along with Cross Country. And so in advance of those train operating companies coming into public ownership, there will be a really rigorous process of holding the leadership there to account. I know my colleague, the Rail Minister, Peter Hendy, will have met with all of the leaders of the train operating company. But they will come into public ownership? They will,
at the end of their contract, which is October 2026,
they will,
I think?
Avanti will come into public ownership.
OK. Is the departure of Louise Haigh from her role going to impact your relationship with the unions?
So I previously served as the Deputy Mayor for Transport in London, and so in that role, you know, there was a lot of involvement with the trade unions in terms of trying to resolve disputes, both the RMT and ASLEF. I'm very clear, you know, sometimes the trade unions will be right and sometimes they will be wrong, and we've got to have a mature conversation. She was very close to the unions,
that's the point I'm trying to make. Do you think that it's going to be a challenge? Are they upset that she was removed of her duties?
So, look, I have a mature relationship with the trade unions, and that's the way I think it needs to be. I do think there has to be a reset in the relationship between the employers and the unions on the railway. I think the previous government pursued a scorched earth approach to industrial relations. That's why we had strike after strike, disruption after disruption, costing the economy a huge amount of money. And so I think that it's right that we respect the trade unions and we treat them as a partner to work with, I think the previous government just saw them as a problem to be managed. There will be robust discussions in that. We won't agree on everything. And we've got a really important piece of work to do to make sure that we are running the railways efficiently, that we are providing value for money for both the fare payer and the taxpayer. And we want a railway that's fit for the 21st century. So that is going to be about making sure that we make best use of technology, that we improve productivity. And those are going to be the sorts of things that, you know, I want to sit down and have a grown-up conversation with the trade unions about.
Was she right to be sacked?
So Lou made the decision to resign.
I don't think she had much choice, though, did she?
I wasn't privy to
No, I'm sure you weren't.
those
but I'm
conversations.
asking you must be very disappointed that she's gone, even though, of course, it's bittersweet for you. But, you know, she was a young woman who had her convictions spent many, many years ago, and it's come back to bite her.
Yeah, so I like Lou, and I think she did a good job as Transport Secretary. I don't know what was said to Keir years ago and what's been said recently. I think she
I know, so that's not why I'm asking you.
She did say, didn't she, to be fair to her, that she didn't want to become a distraction. And I think that's quite an admirable thing to do, to step away and say, for the good of the team, for the good of the government, you know, I'm going to, you know, give up the job that she loved doing and I think she was good at doing. And so obviously I'm delighted to be in this role and I'll do it to the best of my ability. But, you know, I can't really comment because I don't know the full
No, I didn't ask you about
that
at all. It's a shame that a woman of, you know, when her conviction was spent, that she found herself in the position she did. I suppose another way of asking you is, would you be happy to see her around the cabinet table again sometime in the future? She's only in her 30s, isn't she? Yeah, I mean, look, those are decisions for Keir, and he said he thinks that she's got a huge contribution to make to politics and political life. Yeah, OK. Do you think rail fares will be cheaper once these companies come back into public ownership? So, in the budget this year, the Chancellor set out that next year rail fares will increase by 4.6%. That's the lowest absolute increase for 3 years. The commercial realities of the railways are very challenging at the moment. Even under public ownership, we've got to make sure that we've got enough money to provide the services that people want, because otherwise you can enter into a little bit of a death spiral, really, if you start cutting services and people can't get to where they want to get to when they want to get there. They'll look for other options. And so we've actually got to find a way to provide an appropriate service level, but we're going to have to become more efficient and we're going to have to increase productivity, because that's the way that you deliver value for money. And a final thought, I think your team might have mentioned to you that we've got Susan Michaelis, who's a lobular breast cancer sufferer, on the programme later on. Under the previous government, she was promised £20 million specifically for research into lobular breast cancer. Up until now, that promise has not been carried over to this government. Should it? So I'm not familiar with all the details. What I would say is that I appreciate that research is really important in terms of preventing and finding cures for different types of cancer. I know as a government we spend £1.5 billion, I think, on research. And so, you know, it's certainly something that I'd be happy to have a conversation with the Health Secretary about on her behalf. Can you take that away and promise that you will speak to the Health Secretary on her behalf? I can promise I can have that conversation. Great. What I can't do is promise what the outcome will be. But you know, I understand why she's raising it, and I'm happy to find out more information. Welcome back to the morning rounds. Thank you. How is it? It's all right. Not too bad. I know you've got plenty. I sort of feel like you didn't quite beat me up as if I was sort of like in a round with Mike Tyson.
No,
so
I didn't
like
need
you were kind.
No,
you were kind to me.
No.
You were answering my question.
There you go.
Not all your colleagues do. Thank you. It's great to see you. Thank you. We'll be talking about the rail service throughout the day here on Sky News, of course, as more and more of those rail companies come back into public ownership, and the Transport Secretary underlining there that, as far as she is concerned, when Avanti West Coast's contract comes up for renewal, it will not be renewed and it will be brought back into public ownership in October of 2026. Mari, what else?
Morning, Kay. So I thought what was really interesting when it comes to Heidi's responses to some of your questions was around relationships with trade unions and how she was very keen to say, actually, it looks like things might start to change a little bit in terms of the way that Lou Haig did things and the relationships that she had. And actually, it sounded a little bit more like she was giving a little bit of a hint or a warning to the trade unions to say, come on, you know, we're going to start really demanding some things of you now. The Conservatives have been really kind of using that as a kind of stick to beat the Labour Party with around the fact that they gave trade workers pay rises without those pay rises being linked to productivity. And they've often said that that was not acceptable and that was essentially just throwing money, you know, good money after bad. So what it sounds like Heidi Alexander is talking about is starting to kind of increase those demands on trade unions and kind of give that push for technology as well as productivity. And technology is always a controversial one because people are always worried about whether technology might replace people's jobs and therefore might put their jobs at risk. So those kinds of comments can sometimes, let's say, raise a couple of hairs in trade union circles. Also, clearly she's saying rail fares aren't going to go down. They're going to keep going up as usual.
That's exactly what she said.
And her justification was essentially, if we try to start actually reducing those fees, we end up with a worse service because we haven't got the money to provide a good service.
Okay.
So really, prices aren't going to go down, but hopefully people's experiences will be better.
Yeah, I took it as a shot across the bows for the trade unions. Let's wait and see what happens. Thanks, Murray. Thanks for your analysis. All today's top stories.
Yes, we'll start with South Korea, where the opposition parties have submitted a motion to impeach the country's president after he declared martial law, only to reverse the move hours later. South Western Railway services will be the first to be transferred into public ownership next year as part of government plans to gradually nationalise the rail network. The Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, also told this programme that there needed to be a reset of relations with the unions to avoid more strikes. Thousands of people returned to Georgia's parliament last night to protest against the ruling party's decision to suspend talks on joining the European Union. And Sky News investigates the Wild West court system failing victims as barristers warn delays are pushing the justice system to breaking point.
Let's get more on the situation in South Korea now. We can speak to Daniel Pinkston, a lecturer in international relations based in Seoul. Hello to you, Daniel. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. Goodness me, what a to-do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been quite a day. Not even 24 hours have passed yet. I went to bed last night before the declaration of martial law, so I missed what happened through the evening, and I woke up early, about 4:30. I get up early in the morning, and then it had already been lifted. So very rapid sequence of events. President Yoon shockingly made this declaration of martial law. About 2 hours later, the National Assembly met. And under the South Korean Constitution, with a 50% vote, they needed 151 votes out of a 300-member National Assembly to nullify the declaration. They got 190 votes, 190 to 0. And so it was nullified. And then Yoon had to reverse himself a couple of hours later, said it was canceled. And then very quickly today, early in the morning, there were calls for Yoon's impeachment or resignation. And they filed a motion for his impeachment just about 2 hours ago. So it's been moving very, very quickly.
What came over him, do you think?
It's very surprising. I mean, you know, he had been under a lot of pressure. He had a lot of political problems. His party is a minority party in the National Assembly following the National Assembly elections in April. So he had trouble promoting his legislative agenda. There were many investigations. His wife was being investigated for some corruption scandals. There were a number of impeachment motions for other officials during this time. So, but it seems to me that he just seems, you know, disconnected from political reality. I'm not a politician. Yoon is not a politician either. He was a brilliant lawyer. He was a prosecutor, but he was not a career politician before he ran for president just a couple of years ago. So to think that this would pass muster or gain political support in South Korea, I think was just, shocking. And South Koreans won't put up with this, and we see the resistance and the quick reaction to this. So I think his political days are numbered.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the leader of the opposition actually live streaming as he climbed over a fence in order to get back into Parliament when the security services were trying to stop him doing that. What is your prediction about what's going to happen, Daniel?
I don't see how I can politically survive this. So under the Constitution, they have to vote on this motion within 72 hours. And they're calling for a vote either Friday or Saturday. They'll have to get at least 9 members of the PPP, Yoon's party. I think they will get that. Even the ruling party's party leader has deserted him, called for the nullification of the order. So I think the pressure will build over the next day or two. I think by Friday, they will probably vote to impeach him. And then a president who is impeached, he's removed from office temporarily, and the prime minister will step in as acting president until it's adjudicated by the Constitutional Court. And that could take a couple of months. But the problem right now is there are vacancies in the Constitutional Court. They don't have enough justices to hear the case. So this is getting into, kind of gray area or legal limbo. I don't know how they're going to resolve that. But if the Constitutional Court upholds the impeachment and he's removed from office through a conviction, then South Korea would have to hold a new presidential election within 60 days. It's first past the post with no runoff. And so that could happen very quickly and could have a new president in, early next year, possibly.
Good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Thank you, Daniel Tobias, who's here with us in the studio, defence and security analyst, of course. Unbelievable, really.
It took everybody by surprise. How often are we talking about conflict across the world, disorder everywhere you go, and yet suddenly we see the wires saying something's happening in North Korea, South Korea. I immediately assumed that Kim Jong-un had done something, had fired some missiles in or encroached the border and so forth. Martial law declared. And then you look at the detail, and actually this is about a survival of the president, as you've just been hearing now. The younger generation have never experienced anything like this in South Korea because they've enjoyed a democracy. This is a friend of the West, an ally. But the older generation, as you've just been hearing, will reflect on the fact that this was an authoritarian state once and very concerned as to where things will go. And that's reflected by some of those scenes as well. The younger generation coming out and actually pushing the guns away from the military. And the military so quick to answer the president's call, to abseil down onto the parliament building itself, to take over, to introduce military law. My concern is what will North Korea do about this? Because when your adversary is going through problems, you take advantage of that. And if we don't have a president in place, and there are other positions as well, what's going to happen there as well? The Americans are particularly nervous. They have 30,000 troops on this buffer zone between North and South Korea. So this is a very, very testing time indeed.
Although I think it's reasonable to say that the military, although they did abseil down onto the building, they did very little to stop people as they tried to move into the building.
I think they themselves have never done this. This is just not what South Korea does now. They've embraced democracy. They're one of the richer countries in the world now as well. The concern I have, going back to my original point, that we're seeing flare-ups across the world, disorder break out. We don't expect it to take place in a democracy. And yet a president did not read the room, thought that he could actually get away with this, thought he could hold on to power by doing exactly this, introducing martial law.
It must make allies like the US and the UK nervous.
Oh, absolutely, because authoritarianism as a whole is growing across the world. Democracies are on the decline. And here is what we thought, a strong democracy, now dabbling with the idea that martial law might have been introduced. And we're still clearly not out of the woods yet because there's a period of instability that we're now going to go through. So for the West, this is a huge wake-up call. President Trump wanting to perhaps back away from Taiwan and so forth, back away from Ukraine. The West has almost given space for disorder to grow. And I'm afraid our adversaries, particularly China, Russia, and Iran, are taking advantage of that.
Let's talk about Ukraine. You mentioned it there. When I interviewed Zelensky, he said there was no way he was ever going to talk peace. He wasn't going to sit around a table with Putin under any circumstances. He's going to have to.
This is what Trump is pushing towards. He wants the deal. That's what Trump does. You know, I recall meeting Donald Trump at the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings in Portsmouth. And it was curious that he wasn't really familiar with what the Americans did in the Second World War. My takeaway was, I don't want to have to do this again. I don't want to have to bail out Europe when it's in trouble again. And that's his mindset. What we need to explain to the Americans is the huge consequences that if a chunk of Ukraine stays in Russian hands, they will take the time to regroup, rearm, and do it all over again somewhere else in Europe, causing more chaos, a bigger challenge that will actually bleed across to the United States as well. It's better to put this fire out. And that's exactly why all of us are supporting President Zelensky.
Yeah, but he's going to have to cede territory, isn't he, surely?
Well, we went through this in the Second World War as well with East Germany, for example, recognising that that must one day return back to Germany as a whole. Crimea is not even on the table to be discussed at the moment. It could very well be that there is a ceasefire for the moment, and then what will those terms be? The big question this week, with the NATO summit coming up, is will Ukraine be invited to join NATO?
They can't while they're at war. I believe nobody can join NATO while they are at war.
You're technically right. Article 5 suggests that your borders must be sound. But actually, if they want to allow Ukraine to join, they could make it happen. They could easily provide the guarantees and so forth.
Would that be a huge red flag? Wouldn't Russia see that as potentially an act of war?
Well, that might be the counterbalance, you see, that you cede that territory. But these aren't full negotiations. Trump has said that he simply wants the deal, claiming he's got something up his sleeve to be announced in 24 hours of him coming in to the White House. It's far more complicated than that, as we know. My concern is the longevity of this, is that the fight that Russia is having with Ukraine is not about Ukraine. The fight that Russia is having is against the West, is against the ideology. We're already at a cyber war with Russia, but we're not declaring it. We're not recognising that. We're not admitting to it.
OK. For now, as always, Tobias Ellwood, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Of course, we are going to update you throughout the course of the morning about the latest situation in South Korea, formerly a very stable democracy, a friend of the West. Big question is whether warning signs that led to the president for a short time inflicting martial law on the country. That has now been lifted, and they are now discussing impeachment of the president. That could take up to 72 hours. Meantime, Nick Ewer's here with us, the Apprentice star and former Countdown presenter, of course. He's been on the programme previously, here to talk about orphan tourism. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Talk to me about orphan tourism.
It's too much of it. That's the problem. That's the problem. And so many of these orphanages, which are commercial outfits, right, are plonked into, the sort of tourist trail. It happened to me in India 25 years ago, and I didn't spot it. And it was only recently I recalled going to a little orphanage. All the children were blind, and I was with a group of Brits. We were on a cricket tour, and we were mesmerised by the fact that these blind children could identify bits of wood which had been carved into various vegetables and fruit. Which is marvellous, isn't it? How clever, wonderful. And on the way out, of course, we all donated. It's commercial. It's commercial. Placed exactly where and I dare say the guy that took us there was on some sort of commission. It's a racket. And Hope and Homes for Children, which I'm here representing, which has got a big appeal now, the Times and the Sunday Times, doubling everything that we raise, to close down orphanages and get children back to their homes, because there are 5.4 million children in orphanages, of which 80% are not orphans at all. They're recruited through their parents. We'll look after them, bring them, we'll feed them and educate them and all the rest of it. And when the orphanage is full, they then turn to the American churches and say, we've got all these children to feed and clothe, send us your money. And I've seen it in Rwanda, and I've seen it in Eastern Europe, and I've seen it down in South Africa.
But there are some who do need our support. What do we do?
The children that we need to get out of orphanages, what the charity does is to find their extended family and close the orphanage down. We're doing it with governments now. Rwanda is a particular example. We're shutting them down very fast indeed. In fact, they've declared that there will be no more orphanages in Rwanda, which is a bit of a hotspot, I can tell you, within the next few years. And the same in Ukraine, actually. Our boss is out in Ukraine and Moldova at the moment. We're closing them down very, very fast indeed. not least because the governments in each country recognises that it's cheaper, actually, to put the children back into families rather than keep them in orphanages.
So how do people help?
Well, they can pick up a copy of the Times or the Sunday Times and donate, and those papers will double your money. And it's so important. I've been to Rwanda and seen terrible things. And I've seen terrible trafficking incidents, actually, in Eastern Europe. And kids should grow up in family. That's the message, and we can make it happen.
OK. Good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thank you. I saw your article actually in the Times, which is what alerted us to this story. Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you. Thanks. Still to come on The Breakfast Show for you here on Sky News. Why this retired police dog is being dubbed a hero. We'll speak to his owner about a miraculous rescue mission.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation futures.
This is an actual crime. They don't care for that. Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash.
Anyone of any age can say, I'll do that for £1 million and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes. Sky News, the full story first. I'm Greg Milam and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
This is insane. This was a bustling residential area.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
How difficult is this to police tonight? Off the scale.
I'm Dan Whitehead, Sky News' West of England and Wales correspondent.
Trust in politics is at an all-time low. What's going wrong and can we fix it? It's from Liz. She wants to know, why is there still no sign of the Labour Party electing a woman as leader?
It's sort of embarrassing. You know, it takes a very strong man to be leader, but it takes an even stronger man to support a woman for leader.
If you want to be mean to politicians, like, crack on. The activists that go out and make elections happen, I kind of feel like just don't be horrible to them. Be polite to them in the same way that they're polite to you.
Keir Starmer has got us into government with a big majority. He was completely clear before the election that he wasn't going to be able to do the two-child benefit policy, but I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't an early thing that comes along.
I went up to Gordon Brown and said, hello. No, yes, where is it? I said, found all these Tory candidates breaking land. Let me see it, let me see it. This is brilliant, brilliant.
A lot of action going on. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
This is what makes the job so fantastic.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation futures.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Again, everybody, welcome back to The Breakfast Show here on Sky News. A retired police dog who was recovering from a major surgery has rescued a vulnerable missing man. Bear, a German Shepherd, was with his owner when he located the man in the Eastbourne area of East Sussex. Let's speak to Bear's owner now, former police officer Julia Pope. Hi, Julia, good to see you.
Hi, good morning.
Morning. Tell me what happened.
Right, yes. So last Thursday was Bear's 12th birthday, and as a treat, he hadn't been out for a while because he'd had some surgery, and so my husband and I took him up for a walk in one of his favourite areas, and it was getting quite late. It was nearly dark. It was pretty cold, pretty much like it is now. So you can probably see it's a bit fresh up here this morning. and on our way back, he went into work mode really, and he stopped dead in front of me, and then he indicated towards an area that's quite dense undergrowth and some woodland. Dragged us to it, and fortunately inside he located, and he basically pointed out this gentleman who was in some difficulty, and he couldn't get up. He'd fallen over, and he was in some distress. So yeah, we were able to obviously get him out. We're both obviously former police officers as well, so and link in with the local officers who'd been searching for him for some time. So yeah, he did a really good job. So he's in front of me right now, hoping he's going to get a treat. So.
Did he save? Well, without doubt, he saved this poor chap's life, because the other authorities were not looking in the right place. They just didn't know where he was, did they?
No. I mean, they were doing their very best, and they'd been out searching for some time, and they'd used everything at their disposal that you would normally expect, and they were really trying very hard. But it's unlikely of where he was they would have found him in time. As I say, it was really by then almost dark by the time we got him back in to link up with the local police. It was dark, so yeah. I mean, I don't want to make it massively dramatic, but I'm not sure whether he would have survived the whole night, given how cold it was as well, and he'd been out there obviously for some time as well.
And Bear, you knew exactly what he was doing, did you, when he went into work mode?
Well, we wondered to start with, so he was certainly indicating that there was an issue. We didn't obviously know what the issue was. So, yeah, so you can see he's very focused. He's always on the lookout for things. He's basically, he hasn't lost any of his policing instincts. He's basically very nosy all of the time, but this time was different, definitely. He absolutely stopped dead, very, very focused, and pulled us exactly to the spot where this poor man was.
Can we have a look at Bear? You said he was in front of you.
Yeah, I'll just pan around. There he is.
Hello, boy. He's a handsome boy, isn't he? Is he back to full health now?
Yeah, he's not doing too badly. He's still got. You might be able to see some of his the shavings there, but fortunately, very fortunately, he had to have a couple of tumours removed a couple of weeks ago, and we were extremely lucky because they ended up being benign, which is massively good news. Obviously, we're really pleased about that. So,
yeah.
And he's now just wandered off. I'm sorry about
that. No, that's fine. Tell us about the foundation that supports Bear in his retirement.
Yeah, so the Thin Blue Paw Foundation, they are a charity, small charity that was set up a few years ago, and they provide support across the UK for any retired police dogs, because people probably aren't aware that once the dogs retire, then they either stay with their handlers or go to new owners. And once that happens, there's very little support for them, and it is almost near to impossible to obtain any insurance for them. But I mean, what they do is amazing. The charity, they're great. But it's not just about the financial support, really. They've actually created this lovely community where you can go and chat to other dog owners, and as you can imagine, these dogs have a few quirks of their own. So it's just a really lovely community where you get a lot of support for whatever you need, really, not necessarily just financial.
Yeah, I'm aware of their work, actually. How do people go about supporting them if they want to?
Right, so if you go online, you'll be able to see, if you Google Thin Blue Paw, TBP, you'll see their website. It's got all the links there. If you'd like to make a donation, I'm sure they would be hugely appreciative. As I said, they're quite a small charity. They've helped out a huge number of dogs. And for some of those dogs, you know, the work that the charity have done may have been the difference between the dogs continuing with their retirement or not being able to, purely because of the financial cost of keeping them. So, yeah, you'll see all the information there. You'll also get to see all of the dogs, all of the pictures of all of the dogs they support are also online. Bear's on there as well. And you get to see all of the stories and things, and you can follow them on their social media channels as well.
Fantastic. Can you indulge us with one last look at Bear as we say goodbye? Yes. Thank you, Julia. Thank you. Let's have a quick look. There he is. There's Bear, and he is a lifesaver. If it hadn't been for him, a gentleman who was in distress would not be with us today. Who's a good boy? Thanks very much, Julia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Amazing.
Oh, so
I know. You're not a big dog fan, but you've got.
But that's lovely.
It is a great
That's
story.
really
It's a great story. Let's tell you about a horse. She was buried in Venezuela. She's been rescued after passers-by spotted her. This is what happened. She fell into a 7-foot deep pit made by a landslide, and she literally couldn't get out. Locals also tried digging her out, but were unsuccessful. Firefighters were then called to lift the horse out of the hole. The horse was then taken to an equine vet, and thankfully, she was found. There she goes. Oh goodness, she was found to be uninjured. Must have been very traumatic for her, though.
Oh, awful.
I know.
And then you don't really know what's happening, and you're kind of just being lifted with this digger. But gosh, I mean, so glad she's all right, hey?
Yeah. Nothing a good shower won't fix.
No.
Oopsie-daisy.
The exhaustion.
Yeah,
palpable.
exactly. Quick look at what happened last night. Did you see the images from yesterday and last night of the Emir of Qatar being welcomed by Kate, amongst others? Apparently Kate's outfit, there she is, that is the exact tone of the flag of Qatar.
Ah, yes. I also saw some reporting that it was similar to, was it the Qatari Airways uniform? I think that was in one of the papers.
Tell Kate that to her face, eh?
I saw that and I thought, oh, God.
Yeah. But I'm guessing their uniform is also the Qatari flag colour. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it was good to see the Queen. Apparently, she'd had pneumonia.
Yes, we've been told she had kind of a chest infection, but
Yeah.
she kind of gave more details on that. So bless her for also that recovery.
Yeah.
Wasn't at some of the events, but made the dinner later in the day, hey?
Exactly that. We do like a royal visit, don't we? Apparently, the Emir of Qatar has gone to Sandhurst today with the King, and that is, of course, because he qualified at Sandhurst. We will see you in a couple of minutes. Do stay tuned.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Morning, everybody. It's 8 o'clock coming up on the programme for you. 24 hours of chaos in South Korea. The president backs down after declaring martial law and now faces impeachment. We'll have the latest from Seoul.
Plus, full steam ahead, the government announces the first train operators to be nationalised, but the Transport Secretary tells us the ticket prices will still rise.
And should politics be kept out of football? We'll be asking the former Chelsea player, Pam.
It's Wednesday, the 4th of December. South Korean MPs break down barriers and scale fences to stop martial law. They've now begun impeachment proceedings against the president. Getting the railways back on track, the new Transport Secretary on the first train operators to be nationalised and resetting relations with unions.
I do think there has to be a reset in the relationship between the employers and the unions on the railway.
Also ahead, Justice denied how the UK's Wild West court system is failing victims.
Ring the police! Ring the police! Guys, somebody ring the police!
British band sports team robbed at gunpoint on the first day of their US tour. They tell Sky News the show must go on. Morning, everybody. Protesters in South Korea have been celebrating after forcing their president to back down and lift martial law. Opposition MPs crawled through barricades and climbed fences to get into Parliament so that they could vote against the order and protect their country's democracy. They now say the president cannot stay in power a second longer and have begun proceedings to impeach him. A warning, this report from our Asia correspondent Nicole Johnston contains flash photography.
South Korea has not had a night like this in decades. Political turmoil taken to a whole new level. The president is facing growing calls to resign or be impeached for putting the country's democracy in peril. He has now backed down and rescinded his declaration of martial law, but only after a severe crisis, protests and troops on the street.
I have accepted the decision made by the National Assembly to dissolve and lift the martial law.
The opposition says he must go and have started impeachment proceedings.
Yoon Suk-yeol is not in his right mind. His judgment and situational awareness are not normal. It has been confirmed that he is in such a seriously abnormal state that he should not be performing his duties as president, even for a single minute or second.
These were the scenes in the capital Seoul just hours before. Troops on the street. Helicopters above. Crisis and confusion. After weeks of political impasse and claims of corruption, this country, a beacon of democracy and stability, placed under martial law. The opposition, outraged, called on the public to rally. Even members of the president's own party said he had gone too far. Crowds gathered outside the parliament. Then lawmakers entered the building. The opposition leader live-streamed himself climbing over barriers to get inside. The parliament voted down the martial law and declared it illegal, ordering the troops to stand down.
To the soldiers of the Republic of Korea, from now on, the president's order following the illegal declaration of martial law is clearly illegal and unconstitutional.
President Yoon has been under pressure for months. He lost an election this year, was forced to form a minority government, and his popularity has plummeted.
His argument was that opposition party is in cahoots with North, is threatening the South Korean security, which is just ridiculous. I think very few South Koreans will agree with that.
The declaration has backfired on Yoon. South Korea's democracy appears challenged but intact. Yoon's political career may not survive it.
In fact, Nicole, he's being impeached as we speak, isn't he? Or certainly they're voting in that direction.
That's right. The developments are happening very quickly in South Korea. 6 opposition parties have applied for impeachment. They've put forward a bill. It will be discussed tomorrow, but it won't be debated. or until the end of the week, so Thursday or Friday. And if it's passed, it then becomes a very lengthy process that could take 3 months. They've clearly done this because they want the president to step down, to resign. He hasn't done that, so they have gone down this, what appears to be, path of impeachment. It could, though, leave the country in a great deal of sort of political limbo for some months to come. We'll have to wait and see. At the same time, it has been a little bit quieter on the streets, not those incredible scenes that we saw overnight, but hundreds of people are starting to gather outside the National Assembly. They are confused, they're in shock, they're questioning what was the president thinking to try and declare martial law when he didn't even have the support of his own party. Now, civil society groups in South Korea, they're calling for a massive rally tonight that would start in about 2 hours. They're expecting 30,000 people on the streets to come out and demonstrate against what happened during the night and basically to show how upset they are that the country's democracy was almost derailed.
OK, for now, thank you. In other news, the government has announced that South Western Railway trains will be the first train operator to be renationalised next year. The government says the firm, which operates services between London Waterloo and destinations in the south and southwest of England, will be nationalised in the spring. C2C and Greater Anglia services will also be taken back into public ownership next year. The new Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, says she'll work with the unions to help make this a success, but ticket prices will still rise.
I have a mature relationship with the trade unions, and that's the way I think it needs to be. I do think there has to be a reset in the relationship between the employers and the unions on the railway. I think the previous government pursued a scorched earth approach to industrial relations. That's why we had strike after strike, disruption after disruption, costing the economy a huge amount of money. And so I think that it's right that we respect the trade unions and we treat them as a partner to work with. I think the previous government just saw them as a problem to be managed.
Speaking to the Conservatives' Victoria Atkins in the next few moments. Meantime, I want to tell you about a British band called Sports Team. What happened to them?
Well, they've been robbed at gunpoint, Kay, and on their first day of their US tour. They landed in San Francisco on Monday, and on Tuesday morning, around 8:45, they say they were stopping at a Starbucks in the Bay Area of California when someone came in to the coffee shop and basically said, does anybody have a white van? You can see it in the pictures there that were filmed from inside the Starbucks itself. They said the van is being robbed, and they ended up losing a huge amount of their equipment, their personal belongings, their passports and everything else, and they had a gun pulled on them in an absolutely terrifying moment. We actually spoke at Sky News to the singer Alex Rice about what happened.
We were on the Starbucks ordering, essentially, and someone there said, oh, OK, has anyone got a white Sprinter van outside? It's being robbed, basically. So everyone sprints out, natural reaction, right? You sprint towards it to try and stop it. And immediately the guy pulls a gun. He pulls a gun, sort of points at our tour manager, Lauren. There's another guy as well loading stuff out, and a third guy in a getaway car. So we all kind of sprint back into the Starbucks, and they've taken kind of just a huge amount of personal stuff and some musical equipment from the middle of our van. So I haven't played a note yet. 1 minute in, we've kind of got this stuff taken.
But the show must go on.
The show must go on, yes, absolutely. They said that they are determined to continue playing. They played last night, as we understand it. They had a number of other tour dates throughout the US booked, and they said, thankfully, their instruments had actually been locked in a separate compartment at the back of the van. The thieves didn't get those, while they did take, as I mentioned already, their passports, things like their clothes. So they might be wearing the same outfits every day on stage, but at least they will be able to continue playing, and they say they are determined to do that. Really interestingly, though, what they said was they were really surprised by how people reacted. Certainly, you know, they're a Cambridge-formed band, live in London. Gun crime, obviously, nowhere near the same level here as in the US. And I think they expected a much bigger reaction. But they said the servers at Starbucks kept on working. Police didn't even show up. They just asked them to fill out an online form. And the whole thing seemed really quite calm, where, of course, to them, a really harrowing experience where they felt their lives were in danger.
Great lyrics for the next song, though, eh?
I'm sure there'll be inspiration there somewhere.
Thanks very much. Thank you. All today's top stories.
Good morning. Yes, let's turn our attention to the United States. First and foremost, reports Donald Trump is considering replacing his nominee for Defense Secretary. The president-elect is now considering nominating Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in his place. The switch is reportedly due to Trump allies believing that Pete Buttigieg is not going to survive scrutiny over allegations about his personal and professional lives. Our US correspondent, James Matthews, asked if he was fit to run the nation's military.
Mr. Hexet, does your past behaviour make you unfit to serve? You have a problem with women, alcohol and spending. Mr. Hexet, if former colleagues don't think you could run a non-profit, why should you run the nation's military?
The French Prime Minister Michel Barnier is set to face a no-confidence vote today. He will be defeated if both the far left and far right vote against him. The last French government to fall as a result of a no-confidence vote was back in 1962. King Charles will accompany the Emir of Qatar to Sandhurst, where the Emir was once a student, on the second day of his state visit to the UK. The Qatari leader will also meet with Sir Keir Starmer at Downing Street and deliver a speech at Mansion House this evening. Artist Jasleen Kaur has won the Turner Prize for work exploring her Scottish Sikh identity. Her winning exhibition includes a vintage Ford car draped in a crocheted doily. The 38-year-old was handed the £25,000 prize by actor James Norton at a ceremony at London's Tate Britain last night. Plenty more of the day's other stories to come, but before that, barristers are warning that too many people are getting away with crimes because of court delays, and they say the justice system is broken. Let's get the details from Tom Parmenter.
Any one of us could end up in court. You could be a victim or accused of a crime. You might just witness something happen. But the criminal court system is on its knees.
I don't like saying it's broken. It makes me sad. But it's broken because it's not effective. It's not functioning in the way it used to function.
We spent 2 days at Leicester Crown Court with leading barrister Mary Pryor.
There's this old saying, isn't there? Justice delayed is justice denied.
She explained that the police are charging more people, the courts are struggling to keep up. There's shortages of administrative staff, barristers and judges. The prison vans are often running late.
It's incredibly difficult to have to look people in the eye and say, I'm sorry, your trial's going to be adjourned until 2025, 26, 27, and now 2028.
Cameras aren't allowed inside, but we have spent time in the courtrooms, the corridors, the barrister's robing room to witness this problem unfolding. In one hearing, the judge told us directly of his frustration at the delays and the problems they cause. And a prosecutor told us that it means people are getting away with crimes.
We saw the grapple to plug the gaps. Junior barristers like Annabelle having to jump onto unexpected cases with no notice.
It's a lot of pressure. It's stressful. If we don't have a functioning criminal justice system, we are in a position where you have people roaming the streets who are committing serious offences and there's no retribution for that.
And it re-traumatises the victims of crime.
It's draining. Physically, you don't want to get out of bed. Victims I've spoke to feel, what's the point of going forward? And the more that you delay matters, you'll see a lot of victims withdrawing from the system because they just think, what's the point?
After just 2 days in Leicester, it's clear how unsustainable this is.
I really worry that we will end up in a situation where people take the law into their own hands. That's the risk.
The government said it is committed to bearing down on the backlog in England and Wales. But the evidence from court shows the damage it's doing to a justice system that was once the envy of the world. Tom Parmenter, Sky News.
Shadow Secretary of State for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, Victoria Atkins, is with us. Lots to talk about. Let's start with the news that after 33 years within the Conservative Party, Tim Montgomery, has defected to Reform. What's going on with your party?
Well, look, obviously I was sorry to hear that, but the message is the same as it was at the general election, which is if you vote Reform, then you get Labour. And as we've seen, sadly, in rural seats up and down the country, where the Reform vote squeezed out hard-working Conservative MPs, they now have Labour MPs who don't seem to understand the countryside, certainly don't seem to be standing up for the countryside, which is why we have forced today a debate and a vote on the family farm tax, which I've come onto the programme to talk about before, because we know the terrible impact that this is going to have on family farms across the United Kingdom. And we want Labour MPs to make that choice. Are they going to stand up for their constituents, or are they going to toe the party line and suck up to Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves? So
you marched with the farmers last time. Are you going to do it again? I think they're coming with their tractors next week.
Well, we'll see what the arrangements are, but what we're also trying to do, because I'm very conscious, the rallies are really important, and I don't want farmers to have to leave their farms to come make their point heard. But we're doing what we can as Conservatives in this Parliament to really put pressure on the government to think again. And they keep telling us, Treasury ministers have said to us repeatedly, oh, farmers just need to get some advice. Well, farmers have got that advice. And as I will be revealing in the chamber today, that professional advice from agricultural valuers shows that the Treasury and ministers have drastically underestimated how many farms and individuals are affected by this tax, to the tune of some 5 times underestimation. And we believe that up to 75,000 individuals could be affected by this farm tax over the coming generation. And that matters for us all. Not only does it matter about the stewardship of our countryside, but it also matters about the quality of our food and the availability of our food.
So you'll support them. Whatever action they decide to take next week, you'll support them.
We, of course, we will look. Obviously, I've said to the farmers, we need to be working together. We want to do so, and they fully, understand this and agree in a lawful manner. And I think, it is to their absolute credit that more than 45,000 farmers came to Whitehall a couple of weeks ago, and then they, at the end, cleared up all the rubbish. There wasn't any trouble at all.
If there's 45,000 tractors, that's going to be very different.
So this is why we have to take this a step at a time. And I'm very much hoping that this Labour government, now that they've got the new figures, now that the gaps in their own methodology have been revealed, we've seen that they've forgotten 14,000 tenanted farmers, for example, in their calculations. Once they realise that their figures are wrong, we're very much hoping that they would do the right thing and revise and come back with solutions.
Given that we're talking about money, there are reports that Elon Musk could soon donate $100 million to Reform, and that he believes Nigel Farage will be the UK's next Prime Minister. Does that concern you?
Well, again, our message to anyone who's thinking of supporting Reform is that sadly, that will help Labour. What we have to do as Conservatives, and we're not trying to avoid having this conversation. We're very much understanding that we need to do this, is that we took a hell of a beating over the summer. We get that, but we're now rebuilding and renewing our Conservative Party and the principles that we have as a party. And I very much hope that viewers at home and others will watch what we come up with over the coming months and years to see the new Conservative Party that we are building under Kemi Badenoch. And I very much hope that we will welcome back people who perhaps didn't feel able to vote for us at the last election.
Potential caps on migration.
Yeah.
We've been hearing about that. Will NHS workers be exempt from that cap?
So again, this is a long conversation that we've got to have within us as a party. I think Kemi is to be commended actually for acting as quickly as she did to talk about immigration last week. Interestingly, Keir Starmer followed in her footsteps after the figures came out. But we've set these ideas forward, including, of course, the cap. The operational detail of that will have to be worked out. We've got time, there's 4 years before the next election.
Four and a half?
Well, as we've seen already, sadly, 20,000 people have come across in boats since the general election. So depending on how
Plenty more came across before then.
But depending on how poorly the Labour government responds to that, whether they remove completely the deterrent inherent element that we were very focused on and we know was having an impact in Calais and elsewhere. If that continues, we will have to see where we are in 4 years' time. Of course we will.
Do you support the government in taking trains back into, or train companies back into public ownership?
Well, so first of all, privatisation helped inject massive amounts of investment into the railways over the decades that it's been in place. But I think we fully acknowledge that passengers have had a bit of a rum deal from some train companies in recent years. We did a lot of work in government to try and improve that. And so we will wait and see what this nationalisation project brings for passengers. What we are very concerned about is that it should not be ideology, Labour pursuing ideology at the cost of passengers. The measure has to be whether services improve for passengers, whether ticket prices come down, whether the reliability improves, and also, of course, the behaviour of the unions, because I think one of the
to be fair, the Transport Secretary did address that and said that there has to be productivity.
There has to be, and it is extraordinary, frankly, that the previous Transport Secretary gave that inflation-busting pay deal without any modernisation. If you look at some of the practices that the unions, these rail unions, insist on, the stories about lunch breaks being interrupted by a boss saying hello and then their lunch break starts again. This is crazy, and so we will be watching and holding this government to account on that modernisation project alongside this.
Before I let you go, when you were Health Secretary, I know that you met with Susan Michaelis. She has lobular breast cancer. You promised £20 million in the government funding for research into lobular breast cancer. She's not received that as yet, or her organisation has not yet received that. How important is it that they do?
It's really important, and I pay absolute credit, and I'm in awe genuinely of Susan and her husband and all the other women who are campaigning on this. Lobular breast cancer accounts for some 15% of breast cancers, and the lack of international research is quite shocking, actually. And so I, as Health Secretary, prioritise women's health, and as part of that, I wanted research into lobular breast cancer. Unfortunately, the election got in the way, but I would very much hope that the Labour government commits to that funding, because
what would you say to Wes Streeting this morning?
Should have that. Well, I'd say to Wes, why on earth is this, and also the Children's Cancer Task Force, which I set up, where experts from around the country were coming together for free to try to find ways of getting miraculous new treatments to children suffering from cancer. And that has been stopped. And I don't understand why that's been stopped. And I'm also very concerned that there doesn't seem to be any movement on lobular breast cancer. So I think the Health Secretary really does need to underline his commitment to treating these very difficult, very emotive conditions, but also conditions that have a huge impact on families across the United Kingdom.
Shadow Secretary of State, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Just hearing some breaking news here at Sky Centre. Cheshire Police have just issued this statement in relation to Lucy Letby. We can confirm that following agreement, Lucy Letby has recently been interviewed in prison under caution in relation to the ongoing investigation into baby deaths and non-fatal collapses at the Countess of Chester Hospital and the Liverpool Women's Hospital. Further updates will follow at the appropriate time. Letby was convicted of the murder of 7 infants and the attempted murder of 7 more at the Countess of Chester Hospital between 2015 and 2016. More on that as we get it, of course, here on Sky News. Meantime, Maria's here. Thoughts on what we heard from the Shadow Secretary of State? Morning.
Morning, yeah. So Victoria Atkins trying to kind of bat off the defection of Tim Montgomery to the Reform Party and basically just kind of repeating the line, which is a vote for reform is a vote for the Labour Party, end of. And I think from what it feels like, the move of Tim Montgomery is really actually quite important. He has been a Conservative voice for a very, very long time.
On the show later, of course.
Exactly, and it would be really interesting to hear his side of things and why he's made this decision. But it is actually really quite significant, and the idea of just saying, oh, a vote for reform is a vote for Labour, let's move on, I don't know if that's going to be enough to really convince those who decided to vote for reform, who are potentially to kind of stick with reform or might even go to reform who haven't yet, that actually the Conservative Party is for them. They're going to have to do more work than that. And I think Tim Montgomery will probably think that that response is not really getting to the heart of the issue here, which is that for some reason, whatever it might be, depending on who you speak to, people are not feeling represented by the Conservative Party in the way that perhaps they were before. So I thought that was just really interesting as a kind of side note. And then, obviously, when it comes to the railway networks, it was interesting that actually Victoria Atkins kind of sounded a little bit similar to what Heidi Alexander was saying around productivity and around the unions, the relationship with the unions. And this is what we're seeing from opposition under leader Kemi Badenoch, which is not opposition for opposition's sake. So actually saying, if there are things that we agree with, then fine. So what she was saying was, you know, we'll wait and see how this works for passengers, whether it does improve experiences for passengers in the way that they are hoping it will. She's saying that passengers had a rough deal under the Conservative Party, so admitting that, which is interesting. But also, she says she wants inflation-busting pay deals with modernisation rather than having them without, which is actually quite similar to what Heidi was saying. So I think there seems to be a bit of a joined-up thinking between the two main parties on this. The question is whether the Labour Party actually managed to achieve that, or whether the unions start to really kick up a fuss and say that they're not expecting or happy to have those kinds of conditions linked to their pay. That's trickier.
Your tree's up.
I'm so pleased.
I know you are.
Finally, it's the 4th of December.
I know.
We're lagging behind Downing Street. We're lagging behind the House of Commons. And finally, we have a Christmas tree.
You love it, though, don't you?
I love it, Ken. Love the lights.
I went to great lengths to make sure you had you. There he is, look. There he is.
Oh, there we go. Isn't that better? Doesn't that make everyone feel just a little bit better?
Certainly puts a big smile on your face, and that makes me happy. Thank you very much. Thank you. Still to come on The Breakfast Show for you here on Sky News. Should religion be kept out of football? We'll hear from former player Pat Nevin. Plus, fancy a holiday to Greenland? They've unveiled a new international airport in the capital, Nuuk, to entice tourists. And locals come together to save a horse who could have been buried alive. We'll have the whole story for you coming up.
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
You are not getting in this elevator, okay?
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Free, wherever you get your news. This is what they're up against. The wind is the really big problems. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? This is the exact spot in Nottingham where their 19-year-old son, Barnaby Webber, lost his life.
I just think it's so cruel and so harsh.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
Sky News gets the full story first. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. It's almost driverless, but not quite. Hans is a highly trained police dog. The force is incredible. It's really frightening, actually. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before?
yes. Cheers. We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid. And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life?
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
How do they solve a problem like South Korea? Impeachment proceedings underway as we speak. What on earth's going on? We'll talk about that in just a few moments after all today's top stories.
Yes, let's bring you those now, shall we? Well, South Korean opposition parties have submitted a motion to impeach the country's president after he declared martial law, only to reverse the move a few hours later. Former nurse and convicted child killer Lucy Letby has been interviewed by police in prison as part of an investigation into more baby deaths. South Western Railway services will be the first to be transferred into public ownership next year as part of government plans to gradually nationalise the railway network. And Sky News investigates the Wild West court system failing victims. That's as barristers warn delays are pushing the justice system to breaking point.
Let's talk about South Korea, bringing in the commentator Henry Shin, who also is in Seoul for us this morning. Hello to you, Henry. Thanks for joining us. Tell us when you realised something was awry last night.
Well, late last night, there were these breaking news alerts that came out. And like a lot of people, when the news started going around, it was pretty surreal. A lot of people didn't really believe that the president declaring martial law could even be within the realm of possibility. And so as it became clear that this was indeed true, and the president came out on a televised address to announce that he was declaring martial law, you felt a lot of panic sinking in among some people. There were some who were emboldened. They rushed to the National Assembly to try to get the politicians, the lawmakers involved to try to overturn this. And what we saw was a pretty drama-filled evening for a few hours, way up until the wee hours, until they finally nullified the whole thing.
What do you think triggered it? I mean, the president suggesting that it was some issues with North Korea, others suggesting it's issues for the president close to home.
So the President Yoon, he's been under fire for quite a while now, and there have been allegations of corruption, a lot of the charges against his wife, the First Lady, and he's been decidedly quite unpopular for almost the entirety of his presidency. And the opposition party, which won a landslide election in the previous parliamentary elections, they had been repeatedly submitting these special counsel investigations into alleged corruption against the First Lady, against other close confidants of the president, and people close to the president himself apparently believed that this was a stepping stone to impeach the president, pull him down from power, and call snap elections to elect a new president. And so if you look at it from the opposition side, this was a desperation move to cling on to power. If you look at it from his point of view, what he was saying, you take it at face value, that there were these North Korean elements in society that were scheming to try to topple this regime, and that he was going to declare martial law to restore order. I think we can see from the results that it was a pretty unified response in condemning this decree, and we saw the results bear out last night.
Sure. Strikes being called. I'm being told President's top staff handing in their resignations en masse. Impeachment proceedings having now started. I'm sure that, 24 hours ago, you would never have thought we could be having this sort of conversation. What happens next?
Yeah, things move really fast. So as you say, there have been mass resignations both The close aides of the president and the secretariats, including his chief of staff, have all resigned. His entire cabinet has resigned. And the opposition party pretty much wasted no time. They introduced articles of impeachment. They plan to submit it to the National Assembly today. They will deliberate on the bill tomorrow. And if things go according to schedule, they will then vote on the impeachment on the 6th. And if that impeachment bill passes, which would require 2/3 majority in Parliament, then we will go to the Constitutional Court for impeachment proceedings, and that trial could run a month or so, and then we will see what the final verdict is and whether the president will stay in power or not.
What's your prediction?
It appears right now, because of the public furor over this and the very unified stance among the politicians, especially among the opposition, but we're now hearing signs that there are members of the ruling party that are also inclined to potentially support this impeachment bill. It does look like it will go through. Now, what happens in the next month or so, because the proceedings are not going to be over in a few days, this is going to be drawn out for a while. There's a lot that can happen here in Korean politics, as you all know, as people in America know. Nothing is stable as far as the status quo goes in terms of domestic politics. And so we will wait and see. But if I were to be a betting man, I would say that it is probably more likely than not that the impeachment bill will pass. And then from then on, we'll see what the fallout is after that.
OK, good to talk to you. Thank you. Thanks, Henry.
Thank you.
Here's a question for you. Should politics and religion mix? Should politics be kept out of football? Should religion be kept out of football? That's a question that has been sparked as a result of the Crystal Palace captain wearing an armband that says Jesus loves you, a message that he had written on his rainbow captain's armband himself. That has prompted a reminder from the FA that religious messaging is banned. Pat Nevin, former Chelsea, Everton and Kilmarnock footballer, joining us now. Hi, Pat. Good to see you. What's your view?
Yeah, it's a very difficult one because if you look at what the FA, UEFA, FIFA, etc., they want to do is you want to tell everyone there's equality around. However, it's a very, very dodgy area as soon as you dip your toe into it, because to one person, it might be unoffensive, but to another person, it might be completely offensive. We see what's already happened here, that Morsey at Ipswich doesn't want to wear the armband. However, you've got Gahey, who will wear the armband, but he wants to write, I love Jesus on it. Now, that might seem unoffensive to the vast majority of people, but maybe that's offensive to one or two people or one or two religions. So, and it's the subtlety of what that message means, I think. Put on an LGBTQ armband, what is actually written there is that suggesting something else. So, as soon as the authorities go down a certain route and saying, well, we want to back this campaign, be careful, because there's going to be an equal and exact opposite pushback.
Is it reasonable, though, Pat, to defend the actions by saying it sparks conversation?
Yeah, you could say that. And look, I have to say that I'm someone who spent most of my life, certainly since 1983, 84, within football, working for the anti-racism cause. So I'm someone who's in there. I have got political views that I want to put across. I tended not to do them during the match, because afterwards we've got a platform as well, most sports people. And certainly if people bring their political views to, my game and my work and my sport, I feel as if I've got a right to bring them back. And that's what I did and have always done. However, I do understand that there are different cultures around the world that see things differently. We've got an attitude, we seem to have an attitude here of, right, well, we know best and we're going to tell you all what to do, which is a wee bit colonial when you look at it that kind of way, isn't it? And that's why I'm kind of slightly discomforted in what I think probably the best route would be. With most of the organisations, particularly FIFA, UEFA, whatever, they're probably best to stand back to some degree from this and just say, look, nothing on the pitch, You can have your free speech off it and say what you like off it, but on the pitch, we're here for some sport. I come from Glasgow, and in Glasgow, that's not the kind of problem, really, has it? Because I've got one game where you get one religion one side, one religion or one part of the same religion the other side. You've got one political point of view that side, one political point of view. You've got one nationality that side, one different nationality that side. It doesn't kind of make for good friendly banter a lot of the time. It looks for sometimes a lot of sort of bad feeling. So within the football grounds, yeah, we're allowed to talk about it. There should be free speech. But within the actual game itself, you get the feeling as soon as you dip your toe in, you're asking for trouble. But yes, Kay, you're absolutely right. It does start discussion.
Something that we should talk about, and you did talk about long before other people did, and you stood up for Paul Canaville. He was Chelsea's first black player who was subject to racial abuse, even from his own fans. Do you think we've moved forward now from back then, when you had to do what you felt you needed to do in order to give Paul a voice?
It would be quite offensive to say we hadn't moved on from then, because and back in those days in sort of British football fields, there was, with thousands and thousands of people making the monkey chants, throwing bananas, all that sort of stuff. Abuse towards players. Now, it's seen as totally and utterly unacceptable within British football grounds the vast majority of the time now. So that's good. We have moved on to some degree, but I don't think we can actually stand and just accept that, oh, everything's okay, it's a bit better now. No, equality for all. And everybody who comes to a football match, and my personal viewpoint is everyone within society should be treated exactly the same way. Colour, sexuality, creed, whatever, I don't care. Just the same way. And then within football and in sports generally, I mean, we can show that we're as inclusive as we possibly can be. So, yeah, it's better than it used to be, I feel so. But do we give up the kind of good fight? No, I don't think we do that. But it's on the pitches. And I can see people could say, wait a minute, I can feel a wee bit of hypocrisy here. You're suggesting we shouldn't have these political statements or religious statements actually on the pitch. Well, that's a very, very good argument. And I see that argument completely. However, most of my time, it would be spent afterwards using whatever kind of platform you have yourself to make these comments. And yes, we have come some distance and some time. May I underline just now, if I was asked to wear the rainbow armband, I'd be wearing it. I'd be very, very happy to wear it for the equality. I might not agree with every single thing Stonewall's ever said, but for the fact of everybody should have equality, and certainly within football, there should be complete acceptance. I would like to put my hand up and say I'd be behind that.
It's amazing to chat to you again. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Thank you. You can see the side panel there about what's happening in South Korea and the fact that martial law was declared by the president for a very short time until lawmakers said, we're having none of that, and stormed back into the building. They've now started impeachment proceedings. Latest left of your screen, right of your screen, we've got the fabulous Rachel with us. You've got some more details on the breaking news we brought in the last few moments.
Yes, so Cheshire Police, we understand, have interviewed Lucy Letby in prison in connection with and under caution over the alleged murders of more babies who she cared for. Now, the former neonatal nurse, of course, Britain's worst child serial killer, was convicted in recent years for murdering 7 babies and trying to kill 7 more. This was at the Countess of Chester Hospital where she worked. And for that, the 34-year-old was given 15 very rare whole life orders. And she's currently serving that behind bars at HMP Bronzefield in Ashford in Surrey. And it was there that police, we understand, recently interviewed her about a number, we don't know how many, of suspicious or unexpected deaths or collapses of more babies who she was looking after during her time working as a neonatal nurse. Now, we've had a statement from Chester Police given to Sky News saying, we can confirm that following agreement, Lucy Letby has recently been interviewed in prison under caution in relation to the ongoing investigation into baby deaths and non-fatal collapses at the Countess of Chester Hospital and the Liverpool Women's Hospital. And they say that further updates will follow when it is appropriate. So we don't know when this interview took place. We don't know how many babies she was asked about or when this happened. But we did know already that detectives were reviewing the care of some 4,000 babies who she'd looked after while she was working as a neonatal nurse. And this covers her spell both as the Countess of Chester Hospital and placements, 2 work placements at the Liverpool Women's Hospital as well, which was earlier in her career in 2012 to 2015.
The this had been speculated,
Yes.
hadn't it, in many of the newspapers, but it's now been confirmed by the police.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'd also heard, obviously, at the same time, we've got the Thirlwell inquiry going on, which is a public inquiry into her crimes, into how she was able to get away from it for so long, the mistakes that were made. And actually, only last month, the senior paediatrician on the neonatal unit that she worked on said that he believed it was highly likely, or he said it was likely, that she had murdered or attacked more babies than were known about. So we knew the police were ongoing. This is something that's been bubbling away. But, of course, a significant moment that Chester Police have confirmed that they have at least spoken to her under caution behind bars.
OK, for now, thanks very much indeed. Thank you, Rachel. Still to come on the breakfast programme for you here on Sky News Wednesday morning. Greenland's international airport gets a facelift, but what will that mean for tourism and who will profit?
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime. They don't care for that. Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash.
Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes. Sky News, the full story first. I'm Greg Milam and I'm Sky's chief North of England correspondent.
This is insane. This was a bustling residential area.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
How difficult is this to police tonight? Off the scale.
I'm Dan Whitehead, Sky News' West of England and Wales correspondent.
Trust in politics is at an all-time low. What's going wrong and can we fix it? It's from Liz. She wants to know, why is there still no sign of the Labour Party electing a woman as leader?
It's sort of embarrassing. You know, it takes a very strong man to be leader, but it takes an even stronger man to support a woman for leader.
If you want to be mean to politicians, like, crack on. The activists that go out and make elections happen, I kind of feel like just don't be horrible to them. Be polite to them in the same way that they're polite to you.
Keir Starmer has got us into government with a big majority. He was completely clear before the election that he wasn't going to be able to do the two-child benefit policy, but I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't an early thing that comes along.
I went up to Gordon Brown and said, hello? No, yes, where is it? I said, found all these Tory candidates breaking land. Let me see it, let me see it. This is brilliant, brilliant.
A lot of action going on. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
This is what makes the job so fantastic.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime. They don't care for that. Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Hi again, everybody. Welcome back to The Breakfast Show here on Sky News Wednesday morning. Let's take you straight over to Seoul. Our Asia correspondent, Cordelia Lynch, is there for us. We woke up this morning, couldn't believe what we were hearing. Cordelia, good morning.
Good morning to you, Kate. Extraordinary scenes just hours ago outside the parliament here in Seoul, and we saw the military moving in. It evoked some very dark memories of military dictatorships 40 years ago, the president trying to impose martial law, lawmakers from the opposition party rushing to get here to try and vote against it. And now a candlelit vigil is taking place, people calling for the president to be impeached and to be removed from office. It would take 200 out of 300 lawmakers in Parliament for that to happen. We are expecting those proceedings potentially to start on Friday. It might be that we could see the president removed from office by as early as Saturday, but no certainty on that yet, Kay. We can speak now to Jin, one of the people here tonight. What is it that you want to achieve here?
Yes, we want to take back the democracy which is ours, which is written in blood in our history in South Korea. So we want to recovering democracy. So here it is.
Were you scared by seeing the military here last night and those large protests?
Yeah, right. It was terrible because this is miserable thing. It was horrible things. All the helicopters floating and all the soldiers had a gun, a very long gun. So we're just normal people. So all the people was scared.
Why do you think the president has done this? He has had a very unpopular leadership. What do you think motivated it?
I don't know. So we don't know. All people want to know. So we don't understand. We never understand. So the point is he destroyed democracy in South Korea in history.
Jin, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
Well, Kay, I think what's interesting is just how many people were taken by surprise by the president's audacious move, including many within his own party who voted last night against him. Some of those would have to vote for him to be impeached again in order for him to be removed. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But as I understand it from some sources we've been speaking to, is that there was a very small number of people that actually knew that this was going to take place. Now, he came to power with an extremely thin margin. He's had an incredibly contentious tenure, lots of allegations of corruption. And so some are casting this as a sort of desperate power play, but one that has really thrust this democratic nation that has such close ties with America as really kind of disrupting, disturbing and concerning moment that kind of raises a lot of those past memories of the military moving in 40 years ago. And I think what we see here tonight through this vigil is an attempt to sort of restore calm and hope that the president doesn't do anything else to surprise them.
OK, for now, thank you. Obviously, we'll continue to monitor that situation. We'll have a panel up on the left-hand side of your screen as well, so you can use that QR code to catch up. There we go. At any time during the day on the very latest information from Seoul. I want to take you to Greenland, though. There's an extension to the airport there, and it's following the decision that larger aircraft should be able to land there. But some are concerned about the environmental impact and who will benefit from the tourism boom. Let's speak now to Christian Kelson, Chief Executive of Greenland Business Association. Hello to you. It's good to see you, Christian. I know that it's dark quite a lot of the time, isn't it, at this time of year in Greenland. What's the plan? 3 new airports planned, I believe.
Good morning, Kate. Yes, we got 3 new airports planned. We've actually got 18 airports here as it is, but these are extensions to some of the existing runways, enabling us to take in larger aircraft directly to the towns where people live or where we have some great products for tourists. We've always been able to travel via a larger military airbase close to the ice cap. But now you can actually fly directly to the capital of Greenland as of last week, actually.
And who are you aiming this at?
Well, first of all, I think enabling ourselves to travel more smoothly out of the country, but also tourists of all different kinds. We like to market ourselves towards what we call adventure tourists, but they do come in all shapes and sizes, including the soft adventurers. So you'll have your travelers coming in on cruise ships looking for a bit of adventure, but still staying on board the cruise ship. You'll have people flying in for cultural visits. So basically, we like to put it like this: come for the nature, stay for the culture.
Why should people visit Greenland?
Well, why not? First of all, now it's we guarantee a white Christmas. I think that's very good. Second of all, we have decades of experience with tourism, but we are developing, and I think for a lot of people it's been a bit of a mystery because of the difficulties in getting here. So now you have the chance to come out and see a pristine bit of the Arctic, meet the people, meet the culture, see the mix of a modern Arctic community and some of the more preserved ways of living. And then we have everything in between in terms of experiences going on, boat trips, dog sledding, seeing the northern lights, and just basically anything you can do outside in the snow.
You represent businesses across Greenland, don't you, Christian? What are the main business opportunities?
Well, basically, we have everything here that you have in any other society. Lots of construction, retail, tourism is growing, mining. We are very dependent on the fishing industry. We have a growing sort of film industry, entertainment industry as well. So there isn't much you can't do here, really, in terms of business.
And I'm sure our viewers will remember that President Trump previously had said that he was interested in buying Greenland. Is it for sale by the Danes?
Well, it's not up to the Danes, is it? It's actually up to the Greenlanders. And what we keep saying here is we're open for business, but we're not for sale. But the publicity that comes with such a proposal, that's very hard to pay for.
And what about having a Trump Tower there?
We've got a few towers. I'm not sure whether the Trump design, but that's another reason to come to Greenland, because you've got this country that has always invested in aesthetics and architecture. So you've got sort of lots of history in every building and in the space between the buildings here. It's very cultural rich, really.
Fantastic.
So probably no to the Trump Tower.
Final thought before I let you go, Christian. When do we see the Northern Lights in Greenland?
Well, I was going to show you them this morning, but we're not giving it away, so you'll have to come out and see it for yourselves. But it's always there during this time of year in the evenings, especially.
Fantastic. Thank you for going outside for us. We really appreciate it, and look forward to coming to see you in Greenland. Thank you.
We're ready for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds great, doesn't it? Greenland,
So
wouldn't you? Yeah.
I love that we're not giving away the Northern Lights. That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
The Aurora.
Aurora Borealis. Should we go on a work trip?
Definitely.
Yeah. Team building for the weekend.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great idea. I bet they have great Christmas trees as well.
Oh, there you go.
We're back in just a couple of minutes' time with all today's top stories. Do stay tuned our way.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock. Coming up on the programme for you. Chaos in South Korea. The president backs down after declaring martial law and now faces impeachment. We're there live in Seoul.
Plus, full steam ahead, the government announces the first train operation to be nationalised. But the Transport Secretary tells us ticket prices will continue to rise.
And the top songs of 2024 will get the shortlist for this year's MOBO Awards in the next hour.
It's Wednesday, the 4th of December.
I'm outside Parliament here in Seoul, where last night lawmakers scaled fences to stop martial law being imposed. Now impeachment proceedings have begun, and these protesters want the president out soon.
Also ahead, convicted child killer Lucy Letby is interviewed by detectives in prison over the suspicious deaths of more infants. Getting the railways back on track, the new Transport Secretary on the first train operators to be nationalised and resetting relations with unions. Also ahead, justice denied how the UK's Wild West court system is failing victims.
Ring the police! Ring the police! Guys, somebody ring the police!
The British band sports team robbed at gunpoint on the first day of their US tour. They tell Sky News the show must go on. Morning, everybody. Democracy appears to have survived in South Korea, but the president is looking a lot more shaky. He's facing impeachment after trying to impose martial law on the country. Opposition MPs crawled through barricades and climbed fences to block him. And a vigil is taking place outside Parliament right now. We've sent Cordelia to check it out for us, and there she is live in Seoul. Hi, Cordelia. What's going on?
Good morning, UK. Well, a lot of strong feeling. Many people have been gathering here tonight calling for the impeachment of the president. They want to see him removed from office quickly. These were the scenes here, quite extraordinary last night. An incredibly audacious, unexpected move by the president where he imposed martial law. It was something few saw coming, but his has been a very contentious tenure. He was a president that came to power with an incredibly thin margin, and his leadership has been blighted with claims of corruption. He's been deeply unpopular. But I think what we saw take place last night was this desperate attempt to make sure that martial law was not going to stick. I think many have been haunted by the memory of 40 years ago when we saw the army moving in. They didn't want that to be sustained this time round, and so you saw lawmakers make this very quick move, all trying to scale fences, break over barriers to get inside to vote against martial law. What you're seeing now is people are on foot from the opposition party. It was they who moved to vote against martial law yesterday, and it will take them, Kay, and members of the president's own party to vote for his impeachment if he is going to be removed. And that is possible. It could happen as early as this weekend. We will just have to wait and see. But look, this is a country with a rich history of protest, and it's been swift in this particular moment. They just, I think, saw a great wobble of their democracy, a much vaunted democracy. They're a close ally, of course, of America, and I think people are just not willing to accept what President Moon did, and he did it with such little warning. I understand from some sources that there were just one or two people that he informed that he was going to do this. Now we will have to see if he does anything else to surprise this nation. But I think you've got a lot of people gathered here that are willing to stand up to get their voices heard. They are now on the march. We will try and follow them as the night goes on. It's late. Of course, it was late last night that the president made his move to impose martial law. But by dawn in the morning, he had already reversed that decision. He had backed down, but not before stoking huge outrage and a lot of global alarm.
OK, for now, thank you. Let's talk about the convicted child killer, Lucy Letby. Rachel has more morning.
Good morning, Kay. Yes, she's been interviewed by detectives in prison in connection with the suspicious deaths of and collapses of more babies under her care. Of course, Lucy Letby, the former neonatal nurse, Britain's worst child serial killer, who's currently serving a very rare 15 whole-term orders for the murder of 7 babies and for the attempted murder of 7 more, all while she was working at the Countess of Chester Hospital. She's currently serving time in HMP Bronzefield in Surrey. And it was from there, we understand it, that detectives from Chester Police recently interviewed her about the suspicious or unexpected deaths and collapses of more babies under her care. We have had a statement given to us here at Sky News from Chester Police this morning saying that they can confirm that following agreement, Lucy Letby has recently been interviewed in prison under caution in relation to the ongoing investigation into baby deaths and non-fatal collapses at the Countess of Chester Hospital and the Liverpool Women's Hospital as well. They say they'll give us more updates when appropriate. So we don't know yet when this interview took place. We also don't know how many babies were discussed in this interview she was questioned about, but we do know that detectives are reviewing the care of 4,000 infants who were admitted to hospital while she was working, both during her time at the Countess of Chester and during 2 work placements as well at the Liverpool Women's Hospital in 2012 and 2015. They've previously emphasised that only the cases highlighted as medically concerning would be investigated further, but of course all this comes at the same time as the Thirlwell inquiry, which is sitting a public inquiry into her crimes, into how she got away with it for so long, mistakes that may have been missed. And we had heard only last month from one senior paediatrician who worked with her, who said it was likely that she had attacked or harmed more babies. And clearly the police are continuing to look into this with this recent interview of Lucy Letby from behind bars.
OK, for now, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Rest of today's top stories for you now. Here's Gareth.
Yes, let's start with the railways, shall we? The government's announced that South Western Railway Trains will be the first train operator to be renationalised next year. The government says the firm, which operates services between London Waterloo and destinations in the south and southwest of England, will be nationalised in the spring. C2C and Greater Anglia services will also be taken back into public ownership next year. The new Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, says she'll work with the unions to help make this a success, but ticket prices will still rise.
I have a mature relationship with the trade unions, and that's the way I think it needs to be. I do think there has to be a reset in the relationship between the employers and the unions on the railway. I think the previous government pursued a scorched earth approach to industrial relations. That's why we had strike after strike, disruption after disruption, costing the economy a huge amount of money. And so I think that it's right that we respect the trade unions and we treat them as a partner to work with. I think the previous government just saw them as a problem to be managed.
The French Prime Minister Michel Barnier is set to face a no-confidence vote today. He will be defeated if both the far left and the far right vote against him. The last French government to fall as a result of a no-confidence vote was back in 1962. King Charles will accompany the Emir of Qatar to Sandhurst, where the Emir was once a student, on the second day of his state visit to the UK. The Qatari leader will also meet with Sir Keir Starmer at Downing Street and deliver a speech at Mansion House this evening. The British band Sports Team have been robbed at gunpoint on the first day of their US tour. The band had stopped for breakfast when they realised their van was being ransacked by 3 men. When they tried to approach the tour bus, one of the robbers pulled out a gun.
We were on the Starbucks ordering, essentially, and someone there said, OK, has anyone got a white Sprinter van outside? It's being robbed, basically. So everyone sprints out, natural reaction, right? You sprint towards it to try and stop it. And immediately the guy pulls a gun. He pulls a gun, sort of points at our tour manager, Lauren. There's another guy as well loading stuff out, and a third guy in a getaway car. So we all kind of sprint back into the Starbucks. And they've taken kind of just a huge amount of personal stuff, some musical equipment from the middle of our van. So I haven't played a note yet. 1 minute in, we've kind of got this stuff taken.
The artist Jaslyn Kaur has won the Turner Prize for her work exploring her Scottish Sikh identity. The winning exhibition includes a vintage Ford car draped in a crochet doily. The 38-year-old was handed the £25,000 prize by actor James Norton at a ceremony at London's Tate Britain last night.
Don't know either. Barristers are warning that too many people are getting away with crimes because of court delays, and they say the justice system is broken. Tom Parmenter reports.
Any one of us could end up in court. You could be a victim or accused of a crime. You might just witness something happen. But the criminal court system is on its knees.
I don't like saying it's broken. It makes me sad. But it's broken because it's not effective. It's not functioning in the way it used to function.
We spent 2 days at Leicester Crown Court with leading barrister Mary Pryor.
There's this old saying, isn't there? Justice delayed is justice denied.
She explained that the police are charging more people, the courts are struggling to keep up. There's shortages of administrative staff, barristers and judges. The prison vans are often running late.
It's incredibly difficult to have to look people in the eye and say, I'm sorry, your trial's going to be adjourned until 2025, 26, 27, and now 2028.
Cameras aren't allowed inside, but we have spent time in the courtrooms, the corridors, the barrister's robing room to witness this problem unfolding. In one hearing, the judge told us directly of his frustration at the delays and the problems they cause. And a prosecutor told us that it means people are getting away with crimes.
We saw the grapple to plug the gaps. Junior barristers like Annabelle having to jump onto unexpected cases with no notice.
It's a lot of pressure. It's stressful. If we don't have a functioning criminal justice system, we are in a position where you have people roaming the streets who are committing serious offences and there's no retribution for that.
And it re-traumatises the victims of crime.
It's draining. Physically, you don't want to get out of bed. Victims I've spoke to feel, what's the point of going forward? And the more that you delay matters, you'll see a lot of victims withdrawing from the system because they just think, what's the point?
After just 2 days in Leicester, it's clear how unsustainable this is.
I really worry that we will end up in a situation where people take the law into their own hands. That's the risk.
The government said it is committed to bearing down on the backlog in England and Wales. But the evidence from court shows the damage it's doing to a justice system that was once the envy of the world. Tom Parmenter, Sky News.
Look who's here with us, the founder of Conservative Home, Tim Montgomery. He's been a Tory for donkey's years. He's now joined Reform. We'll be asking him why in just a second. I put it to Victoria Atkins for the opposition this morning, and this is what she said.
The message is the same as it was at the general election, which is if you vote Reform, then you get Labour. And as we've seen, sadly, in rural seats up and down the country, where the Reform vote squeezed out hard-working Conservative MPs, they now have Labour MPs who don't seem to understand the countryside, certainly don't seem to be standing up for the countryside.
So, a vote for Reform is a vote for Labour.
Well, look, I am, as you said, donkey's years, I think, was your expression. I've been a Conservative Party member for most of my life, I think 36 years. And so leaving the Conservative Party wasn't easy. And I've heard those arguments that Victoria made to you, plenty of times. But you get to a point, Kay, where the failure of the Conservative Party in government was just so stark. It's my protest, really, at that failure. And we had those immigration numbers last Thursday, which showed that all the time the Conservative Party was promising to control immigration, actually immigration was reaching record levels. And that was really the last straw for me. And Nigel Farage is not everyone's cup of tea.
Is he yours?
He is my cup of tea. And what I like about him is that even when you disagree with him, and I don't agree with him on everything, I'm not going to be 100%, on Reform's message all of the time, but even when you disagree with him, you know he's talking to you in a straight, direct, honest way. And that's rare in politics. How often do you have people sat here opposite you with your forensic questioning and people, you just know that they're not really telling you the full truth? Now, I'm not saying that Nigel Farage is perfect, but he is a straight talker. And I think that's the same reason why Donald Trump has just won in America. people are yearning for authenticity. And that's why I've made the difficult jump that I have.
So are you sort of deserting a sinking ship?
Well, look, I still have an awful lot of affection for the Conservative Party and Conservative MPs. And ultimately, I think there needs to be some sort of arrangement between Reform and the Conservative Party. The reason why the Conservatives have been the dominant party in British politics for the post-war period is the right has been united in British politics. The left has been divided, and that's why partly, Mrs Thatcher won the landslide wins that she did. So there will need to, at some point, be some sort of accommodation between the Conservatives and Reform, in my view. It may mean, for example, it's too early to tell, because I think what this Parliament is partly about is these two parties now jostling for superiority. Who will be the bigger partner in negotiations about an accommodation? But it could look like Reform standing down in certain southern seats, the Conservative Party standing down in certain northern seats at the next election, because the priority must be to defeat Labour, a failing government that I think is failing much more than people expected. But for me, Reform is the ascendant party now. Reform is the party that is addressing the issues that the British people, I think, want addressed, whereas the Conservative Party is... trouble with the Conservative Party is it's, I think, fundamentally divided now. And Nigel Farage sort of joked last week, if Tory MPs had to defect, half of them might defect to Reform, but half of them would defect to the Liberal Democrats. And that's the problem, I think, now for the Conservative Party. It's been in power an awful long time, and it's attracted a lot of people who aren't really Conservatives. And if Kemi Badenoch needs to lead the Conservative Party, but to lead the Conservative Party is almost to divide it. Because if she did try and take it in a particularly strong direction, there are plenty of Conservative MPs, whatever direction she chose to take it in, would object to it.
Elon Musk allegedly wants to donate $100 million to Reform in the hope and the expectation, according to him, that Nigel Farage will be the next Prime Minister.
Well, that's way above my pay grade. I donated £25 in my membership fee for Reform yesterday. $100 million, well, that's I don't know whether that would happen, but...
what about the wider point? Could we see Nigel Farage as the Prime Minister of this country?
I think that's a long way for him to go, from 5 MPs at the moment in Parliament to having 320-odd. But what I think there is, that's a question perhaps for another day, but what there is at the moment is Welsh elections coming up, local elections next year, and I think people have an opportunity now to send a message to the mainstream parties. Do they really want fundamental change? And if you want fundamental change, I think Reform is probably the best option for you on the ballot paper.
Good parties are made up of working people, but occasionally you get the odd wrong un. And you know that I must ask you about James Murdoch and the fact that he attacked his girlfriend many years ago now when he was a teenager.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, can that ever be justified?
No. I saw Sophie Ridge's interview with Richard Tice yesterday, and I didn't really understand some of the points that Richard Tice was making. I'm not going to be someone who's going to defend Reform at every point. If you kick a woman on the ground, it's unacceptable.
Kicked her several times.
Or whatever, according to the reports.
Yes.
I don't know, how the veracity of them. But if those reports are true, if you kick a woman on the ground in any violent way, that for me is disqualifying. Even if it was some years ago, that's a horrendous thing to do. So
you think he should step down?
If that account of what happened is true, I think... and it wasn't, the electorate that gave him a very narrow victory at the last election didn't know that.
Yes,
and so
I accept that.
Yeah.
Let me just read to you, if I may, please, Tim, because you've been very honest with us. Further details emerged of the incident after the Times applied to the court for information from the official record, which showed he received a custodial sentence for kicking the victim around 4 times. Mr Murdoch's victim's mother went on to say that it took 2 security guards to pull him off her.
Yeah. Well, as I can only repeat what I've already said. If that is what happened, that for me is disqualifying.
Why do you think Reform is so popular at the moment?
I think it is that authenticity thing, in large part, that I mentioned. Voters want the truth from politicians at a time when there's so much change going on. almost we're the dangerous position, if you like, for British politics at the moment is you have two main political parties. The Conservative Party, recently rejected at the ballot box in the July general election. And then, so you've got one of the main traditional political parties in disrepute, if you like. And then the other one comes in, and we have this economic cloud over the whole country. We have failure. 20,000 people already across the channel under Keir Starmer's rule. We've had, all sorts of questions about two-tier policing. So you have two political parties that traditionally have been hoovered up most of the votes of the British people. Are people looking at them thinking they're failing? And I think people are looking for something different. And Nigel Farage is that something different.
Very popular with young men, according to at least a recent poll.
Popular with lots of people.
But not very popular with young women.
Similar, actually, to the phenomenon we've seen on the other side of the Atlantic with Donald Trump. So,
why do you think that is? What do you need to do to try to appeal to young women?
Well, I think maybe the story that we've just been discussing is part of the problem, yeah. And people... And so I would hope, I'm going to be a candid friend to Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. I think that's something that the party needs to address. And if you want to be a serious party of government, you need to bring, all sections of the society behind you. And that's something I hope Reform will do as well.
And how is social media helping you bring the party into the fore?
Well, that's incredibly important. Sky is very good at giving people, all parties an opportunity to present their views. But often, smaller parties like Reform, traditionally smaller parties anyway, don't get the exposure on the BBC or in the mainstream media. And social media is transforming that. People can now communicate directly without mainstream media as a mediary and directly to voters. And Nigel Farage, I think he's got 1 million followers on TikTok now. These things are incredibly important for reaching voters who wouldn't normally see a political party through the BBC One 6 o'clock or the 10 o'clock news. And young people in particular, of course, they're on TikTok. Young men are on TikTok. And that's part of the reason why I think Nigel Farage is breaking through with that section of the electorate in the way he is.
Do you foresee a moment in time when the Conservative Party bends so that you feel that you can rejoin them?
I'm not talking about... I'm now a member of Reform, and I will...
You may meld the two parties together.
Well, they may, but that... wouldn't think about necessarily rejoining the Conservative Party. It would be some sort of arrangement between these two parties. I now would encourage anyone who's been in the position that I've been up until recently is the Conservative Party are really going to struggle to be trusted by the British people again because of their record, because they said they would control immigration and they did the opposite. I think it's time for... I've taken the decision to join a new political party with a fresh reputation that can start again, and I hope other people might follow me in that decision.
Finally, what do you most like and dislike about Nigel Farage?
Oh, my goodness, I'm not sure I'm going to answer the dislike question.
Why not? You said you didn't agree with everything he
Well, I said to him yesterday, I said, do you really want me to join the Reform? Because I've been an awkward so-and-so for the Conservative Party over the years. I could be an awkward so-and-so for you. And he said, well, we're a party of rebels, and you join in sort of the rebel army in a way. So he knows the basis on which I'm joining. And I said to him yesterday, for example, I support the overseas aid budget. I think the overseas aid budget does an awful lot of good
you think it should be increased to 0.7%?
I would like to see it back to 0.7%, but even the Labour Party isn't going in that direction. So in terms of something I disagree with, I don't know whether it's a dislike or whatever, the aid budget is certainly one of them. But I think immigration is the one thing I most support him on. I think we need the control of our borders again. British people do feel their country's being broken into with the crossings across the Channel. And I'm glad to be part of a party now where I feel I don't have to worry and feel this excuse and compromise all the time. It's a party that's saying what it believes, and that matters.
We're out of time, Tim, but as you say, on The Breakfast Show, we try to give all sides a voice. It's good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you. Still to come on The Breakfast Show for you here on Sky News Wednesday morning, the campaigner calling for more research into a forgotten form of breast cancer and why she's sending a rose to every MP in the country.
Started looking down like where the middle go. I've been on this grind like it's gonna break my fall.
OK, nominations for the MOBO Awards have been announced. We'll find out who's in the running.
I don't want to judge, but
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
You are not getting in this elevator, okay?
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Free, wherever you get your news. This is what they're up against. The wind is the really big problem. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? This is the exact spot in Nottingham where their 19-year-old son, Barnaby Webber, lost his life.
I just think it's so cruel and so harsh.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
Sky News gets the full story first. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. It's almost driverless, but not quite. Hans is a highly trained police dog. The force is incredible. It's really frightening, actually. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers. We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty? I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Hello again, everybody. Journalists at two national newspapers are launching a 48-hour strike in protest at the planned sale of one of the titles. Members of the NUJ, the National Union of Journalists, at The Guardian and Observer newspapers are walking out for the first time in more than 50 years. They're protesting at the planned sale of The Observer to Tortoise Media. Our correspondent Katie Spencer joins us now from outside The Guardian and Observer headquarters in London. Hi, Katie. Morning. Tell us more.
Morning. Look, journalists have been here since early this morning. I think walking out from their positions for the next 48 hours isn't a decision that they've taken lightly. It is the world's oldest Sunday newspaper, The Observer, and this strike is the first at The Guardian in more than 50 years over the proposed bid to sell to Tortoise Media. Now, that might be a name that you recognise from podcasts and its website. They are promising to invest around 25 million over the next 5 years to turn The Observer into a standalone newspaper, and also it's thought to put it behind a paywall. But journalists aren't convinced that this is the answer to the Observer's problems. We're going to bring in Sonia Soda, who's a journalist here at the moment. Sonia, the last few months for you guys has been a very uncertain time. What's been the mood like over this?
Well, there's been a massive amount of uncertainty, but there's also, I think, puzzlement on behalf of journalists at The Guardian and The Observer, because we see these two great papers as they belong together.
They're hugely integrated. A lot of journalism that The Observer does, business, sports, foreign coverage. We share desks, we share journalists with The Guardian. So for us, it's something that just completely hit us out of the blue. And we don't think that it works financially to extract a Sunday newspaper from a 7-day news and media operation in a digital age. Standalone Sunday newspapers didn't really work 30 years ago. They're not going to work today. Creates huge diseconomies of scale. Why would anyone who cares about the future of liberal journalism in this country want to see these two newspapers separated? It makes no sense to us at all.
It is a very uncertain time for all newspapers at the moment. Why, though, are you not convinced that this is the answer then for the Observer?
Because we believe that the Observer's Sunday journalism belongs with The Guardian. You can't be a national newspaper and an international news brand and not break big politics, sports, news stories, do arts coverage on a Sunday. The Observer does that for The Guardian, and it gets published on The Guardian website. Every week, our journalism is read. We get over 10 million hits a week on average. Both here in the UK and around the world. The proposal is to basically extract The Observer, huge financial diseconomies of scale. That doesn't work, but also to put The Observer behind a paywall. Even with very, very ambitious subscriber targets, you're talking about its journalism reaching just tens of thousands of people as opposed to the over 10 million hits that we get a week.
Look, the guys here are going to be out here for the next 48 hours. I think if you're looking on the Guardian's website or in the print editions, you will probably notice a slight difference because there aren't going to be the same numbers of people writing. A Guardian Media Group spokesperson has said, "We respect the right of NUJ members to strike. We continue to publish online and in print and are working to minimise the impact on staff and readers. Our priority is to make sure the Observer's journalism continues to have a leading role in the liberal media landscape." I think, though, journalists here just aren't convinced, though, that this deal is in the Observer's best interest.
Will there be a paper tomorrow?
Will there be a paper? There will be a paper. I believe there's going to be a paper, but it won't be written by you guys.
It's not going to be the same. No. It's going to be much thinner.
Much thinner.
OK, thank you. Still to come on The Breakfast Show for you here on Sky News, campaigners call for more research into a forgotten form of breast cancer by sending a rose to every MP in the country. And the King and Queen host the Emir of Qatar on a 2-day state visit. We'll speak to Newsweek's royal correspondent Jack Royston next. Campaigners calling for more research into a forgotten form of breast cancer. In the UK, around 15% of breast cancers are invasive lobular. With us is Susan Michaelis, diagnosed with lobular breast cancer. You were promised by the previous government that they would invest £20 million into research. What's happened since? Good morning.
Good morning, Kay. Well, we were led to believe that the money would be made available, this money, because this type of breast cancer, the second most common type, has been really forgotten and underfunded. And, you know, we got a really positive response. We got more than 50% of eligible MPs saying they backed our campaign to get the research funding and get this work going. But since the change of government, it's gone silent, and, you know, that's really not okay.
Well, the Transport Secretary was on this morning, not necessarily her brief, but I wasn't going to let her off the hook, and I asked her what she was going to do about it.
I know as a government we spend £1.5 billion, I think, on research. And so, you know, it's certainly something that I'd be happy to have a conversation with the Health Secretary about on her behalf.
Can you take that away and promise that you will speak to the Health Secretary on her behalf?
I can promise I can have that conversation.
Great. Does that help?
Well, it'd be great if she'd have a conversation, but we'd actually like to hear from the Health Secretary.
Of course.
But I've heard a lot of that before, you know, about 1.5 billion. What we need to talk about is the 20 million specifically for lobular breast cancer research, which the previous government and Victoria Atkins, you know, she prioritised it in the 2024 Women's Health Strategy to give us better outcomes, because this type of breast cancer has effectively been underfunded and forgotten in the research, and it needs this funding, and we've found a way to get that done, and we believe through the Manchester Breast Centre they can do this work on a collaborative approach, and you know, we think to have been forgotten, to be, you know, the second most common type of breast cancer, the sixth most common type of female cancer, but have been ignored, so, you know, not given sufficient priority in the research. We don't have specific treatments.
So you're not taking this lying down. You're going to say, I'm not sure if you've already done it, but you're sending a rose to every MP. Tell me about that.
Well, we've just spent, you know, 2 days packing them up. The Harkness roses, who were so kind to, you know, name a rose after me last year. And we've packaged those up and they're going out to MPs, every MP in the country today, because, you know, as I said last time, we got so much support and we want that back because it makes sense. It'll save the system money and, you know, help us get early diagnosis, which we don't get at the moment, and help us get specific treatments. And the MPs that are pledging support to ask the government, the Health Secretary, to fund this, they say it's a win-win. It makes sense and it will help save money, help save lives.
Tell me about lobular breast cancer.
Well, it's the second most common type of breast cancer, and people have never heard of it, like me. I hadn't. I got it diagnosed 11 years ago, and it was a complete surprise. You know, the mammogram showed nothing, which is very common because it doesn't really form a lump. That's the, you know, the peculiarity with it, and therefore it gets missed. It's like a spider's web. So you know, so often, many of us get told, well, you're okay, but something's just not right. And, you know, it hasn't been, you know, given the funding and priority in the research community, even though they know it behaves very differently. And they knew when I was a teenager that it was very, very different. And I just don't think that's good enough.
So how can it be diagnosed if it can't be picked up by a mammogram?
Well,
ultrasound, MRI?
I mean, mammogram sometimes picks it up, but generally it doesn't. MRI picked it up for me. It said, well, mammogram, nothing. MRI said 2.5 centimetres. I actually had 7 centimetres of lobular breast cancer. So, you know, that is large, like a spider's web, and I now have an incurable disease. So, you know, I went from being just in the breast to going elsewhere, to my bones, to my neck and my skin. I don't want this for other people. I want to learn. I want people to listen to these stories, not just from me, but I hear the same stories from so many others. And I want things to be better for all of us and all of those diagnosed in the future.
You're such a strong and brave woman. I hope that West Streeting takes note. Do come and talk to us whenever you want to. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Still to come on The Breakfast Show for you here on Sky News. We'll be telling you about a dog sanctuary which has been served an eviction notice, putting dogs' lives at risk. We'll speak to the owner of the sanctuary next.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's futures.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash.
Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes. Sky News, the full story first. I'm Greg Milam and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
This is insane. This was a bustling residential area.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
How difficult is this to police tonight? Off the scale.
I'm Dan Whitehead, Sky News' West of England and Wales correspondent.
Trust in politics is at an all-time low. What's going wrong and can we fix it? It's from Liz. She wants to know, why is there still no sign of the Labour Party electing a woman as leader?
It's sort of embarrassing. You know, it takes a very strong man to be leader, but it takes an even stronger man to support a woman for leader.
If you want to be mean to politicians, like, crack on. The activists that go out and make elections happen, I kind of feel like just don't be horrible to them. Be polite to them in the same way that they're polite to you.
Keir Starmer has got us into government with a big majority. He was completely clear before the election that he wasn't going to be able to do the two-child benefit policy, but I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't an early thing that comes along.
I went up to Gordon Brown and said, hello? No, yes, where is it? I said, found all these Tory candidates breaking land. Let me see it, let me see it. This is brilliant, brilliant.
A lot of action going on. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
This is what makes the job so fantastic.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Hello again, everybody. A dog sanctuary in Stockport has been served an eviction notice, putting up to 17 animals' lives at risk unless they can be rehomed within 3 weeks. Let's get more, should we? Joining us is Alison Clark and her dog Hope. Hi, how are you?
Cold.
Gorgeous doggy. Tell me what's going on.
So there's been a change of use with these premises. The landlady's lovely. She's trying to help us as best she can. But we've now got until the end of December to try and relocate.
OK. And how tricky is that proving?
It's actually proved impossible. We did find different premises, but unfortunately that fell through.
Talk to me about some of the animals that are being kept at the premises at the moment, like Hope and others.
So Hope, my gorgeous Hope here, she's a real neglect case, an abuse case. So she came to us and has put on 10 kg and has done wonders with her rehabilitation here. So we've got her and we've got 17 others that aren't rehomable due to fear aggression, anxiety, bite history. That's lovely Eric on the screen now.
What's going to happen to these doggies, Alison, if you can't find a new place by the end of December?
I'm really upset because there is no hope for these dogs. They only know me. They're happy. They have a lovely life here, lots of enrichment, lots of love and care, and they show that back to me in so many different ways. But unfortunately, unless we can find premises for these dogs, then there is no hope for them.
So how can people help, Alison? What needs to happen?
Well, I can't believe the generosity of the public. When we set out just a little fundraiser to see if we could build our own, the generosity is overwhelming. I mean, we're nearly 50,000, but what we really need is premises. So anybody out there, particularly Wales or borders of Wales, if you've got some buildings or you've got a place that's not being used, please consider us and save these dogs.
What sort of building does it need to be?
Well, if it's barns, as long as it's got water and electricity and some land, then we can work with that.
OK, and you have 15 dogs at the moment, is that right?
We have 30 dogs in our care and 17 unrehomable.
OK, and...
Hope is rehomable, though.
Yeah, doggies like Hope, obviously, and you show them lots of love, as we can see.
Oh yeah.
But why do you have to move from the premises? What's going on?
There's been a change of use for the premises, and unfortunately, it's been relet. But because we thought we'd found a place, the place was actually relet by the owners, and they've bent over backwards to try and help us and move us around just to keep us here a little bit longer. So they've been fantastic.
OK, and if people do want to help you, how do they get in touch? Don't give me your phone number, obviously.
Sorry, say this again, sorry.
I said, don't give me your phone number, but how do they get in touch if they want to help?
They can get in touch with me through the GoFundMe and through the newspapers with the attached Gmail.
OK, we'll make sure we mention those when we clip this up for Twitter. Alison, let us know how you get on. Hopefully we can make a difference, and doggies like Hope and the rest will have somewhere after Christmas to spend the rest of their days. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.